Martha,
So does anybody have anything to say about how the media has been covering these elections?
Event over across town on some sort of faux veteran sort of issue. I'm going to speak to you tonight about the issue that really confronts veterans. I'm going to talk
it's hard to talk over the audio.
The Veterans Administration, the lousy appeals
really not
process
much
that
to
they've
say
got,
because
the
the
fact that sometimes they get good service in the VA and sometimes they don't, and the fact that post-traumatic stress syndrome is not properly recognized, that psychology positions are unavailable in the Veterans Administration. And I will say this to you, as the only veteran in this race, when I become president of the United States, the veterans are going to be treated with respect and competently and success in the Veterans Administration in this country. Governor, thank you.
Governor Huckabee, word is that New York Mayor Michael Bloomberg
Does anybody else have an opinion?
If he does, that would make four
I think all of these candidates pretty much agree about this fundamental things, and they're trying to sound different or trying to sound like they're populists, and that they're with the little guy in Iowa.
New York
well, they're really not. They're just
different than Iowa
basic variants of, you know, advocates of the status quo.
You know, I would leave that to other people. I'm not going to get into an argument.
Kind of hard to talk over
as they did
them, but
the corporately funded candidates, but they didn't.
Do you guys want to go
back? To be honest with you, I wish they had.
Let's go back to the debate.
I'm not a New York funded campaign. I'm not bankrolled by the corporatist. I'm not bankrolled by Goldman Sachs and Citibank and AIG and all the big brokerage houses and the billionaires. I'm sponsored by people like Thomas, a part-time Uber driver in Pennsylvania, who sent me $25 this week. He's between jobs. He's driving an Uber car. But he believed in what I'm talking about enough that even on a limited part-time income, he sent me $25 in my campaign. I'll stand with the Thomases of the world any day. I'll leave all the discussion of the big financiers to other candidates, but there's only a few of us in the entire Republican process who are not corporately funded by the same group. And let me just finish by saying, you want to know why things never change depending on whether Democrats or Republicans are in power?
So what do we think of this guy?
Republicans in Iowa and the rest of the country are so frustrated. The reason is,
you don't like
is
him,
because if you follow the money,
no?
the same folks who finance the Democrats finance
the
speeches and the ads. They get the same results.
I don't see why he's any different from anyone else. They're all for the wars and all the horrible things that are going on that are kind of ruining the U.S.
According to Google, the Paris terror attacks were the largest story that was searched.
Have a more focus at home, right? Rather than spending more money on war, but not necessarily. I don't know. Are you for social programs or
terror attacks so far this year?
No, I'm for non-intervention. I'm for
and it will likely,
people
as we all know, get worse.
Us minding our own business in the world and living free here. No, I'm not particularly for social programs.
Here's the question.
Okay.
But,
okay.
We have to have an honest discussion with the American people about the nature of the threat that we confront. This president says that ISIS has nothing to do with Islam, and as a result, we put together a strategy that doesn't take care of the reality, which is ISIS has established a caliphate. A caliphate is like a kingdom ruled by a caliphate is ruled by a caliph. A kingdom is ruled by a king. Only the difference is a caliphate is also a religious title, and is both a religious call to help this state as well as to make the state stronger. The reality is that ISIS has established a caliphate and is using that to attract people around the globe to follow them as the leaders of the Sunni world. And you say, well, how do we stop them from following them? Well, to be a legitimate caliphate, you have to control land and operate a state under Sharia law. If you don't do that, you cannot call for that support. And so the answer is we must take their land and make them illegitimate in the eyes of the Muslim world.
What do you think of that, Jeff?
Troops on the ground.
I think the reason there's an ISIS, or the reason why it's so big, is because of foreign intervention that emboldens radical
same topic.
invaders and occupiers of their lands. That's and when the U.S. left Iraq and these places, they left arms that ISIS is now using of all of these atrocities are committed by the weapons say made in the U.S. On them. This is, and the idea that we should just do the same thing and it's going to get better is not only wrong, it's the definition of insanity.
Says that many are exaggerating the threat.
Yeah, that's true. That is true.
To quote him, this is not World War III.
Sure.
Yeah, of course. Yeah, sure.
I don't think that, of course, I don't think that you're wrong when you say this. I don't think that you're wrong, Jeff, when you say that
they do not
that intervention is the cause
to help us defeat ISIS.
But I do think that perhaps
and the truth is, under this
the
president,
political agenda of
we are on Iran's
contemporary
side, not our allies who would help us defeat
paradigm
ISIS.
is not to actually
One of the
create
things we have to start with is understand.
freedom in the Middle East, but rather to invoke violence and create conflict in order to expedite political
mayhem in that region is very much in the interest of a lot of members of the military-industrial complex. There's a huge economic incentive to keep things really in upheaval overseas. I totally agree with that.
Interesting. All right, let's continue watching, guys.
We're going to put back on the debate for a little bit.
The United States of America was purposely attacked by terrorists, and we will seek retribution. Then you are saying to every adversary and every terrorist organization, kill these savages. Then on this, they are
Grandkids. That's ridiculous.
with us and not against us. But we have seen.
I've never said I trusted him, but if somebody's willing to take a shot at the people we're taking shots at, I'm more than willing to let them use their own bullets to do it. But let's be very clear about how we take out ISIS, and I think Rick Santorum is exactly right. You take away their land. But one of the things we have to do is a comprehensive strategy to get ISIS. First of all, take away their access to social media platforms. They're using the same social media platforms to recruit and to train and to direct people as I use to see pictures of my grandkids. That's ridiculous. The second thing, go after them financially. Wage war with them. Make it so nobody can do commerce with ISIS. Not a nickel of transfer. Any company, any country that even gets close to dealing with them, absolutely put sanctions on them. Make them pay. And finally, you got to go after them militarily. And that means we send the land, the sea, the air forces, the A-10 Warthogs, dropping ordnances on every truck and every tank, and we obliterate them. But we have to understand that they are a force that's getting bigger, and with any kind of cancer, you don't contain it, you eradicate it. And that's how we have to fight ISIS comprehensively. That's what I would suggest we do.
Governor Gilmore.
What do you think of that, Jeff?
This spring, 34.
I don't know. Would that ban include the U.S. government that actually supported ISIS to fight Al-Qaeda, who now apparently are our ally because they're fighting ISIS? This is so insane, and for anybody to be trying to defend any of this is just so ludicrous, and it's so discouraging to see this on a national forum, and for intelligent people to be falling behind one or another of these stooges who want to continue this these atrocities and this nonsense. It's just terrible.
Yeah, I agree with you.
On to Europe during the Cold War as United States Army intelligence agent. The governor during
Does anybody else have anything to say?
The chairman of the National Commission on Homeland Security for the United States for 5 years. And this is what I'll do. If I become rebuild the United States military, we're going to take the sequester off the defense budget, give the Navy the ships it needs, refit the United States Army, refit the United States Marine Corps, and on this international guerrilla war. We need to recognize our special forces, our intelligence community, and the people that we need in order to really protect us. And finally, this war of ideas, we must win this. We must say to the world that radical Islam is the threat. It isn't just confined to ISIS. It is worldwide. And if we win the war of ideas, then we will win the international guerrilla war.
Governor, thank you for that.
Vanessa?
Yes?
Kind
Coming up,
But
we're
Have you ever
more
heard,
on the top issues in this campaign, and you can engage in
there's
tonight's
a
conversation right
political
from home.
philosopher called
Go to the
Slavoj Žižek, and he talks about how the Rammstein, if you know the band Rammstein, they're like a
Live from the Iowa Event
they're a
Center
metal band
in
from
Des
Germany,
Mhm.
and he talks about how the way in which people listen to this music is like predicated in the post or the retronationalism, and that's how I feel these political debates that run. Like, we no longer have any sort of substantive content, but we're listening to this media as a form of like musical violence. Like, it's a form of like.
That's really interesting. Do you where'd you read that?
Huh?
Did you say you read that somewhere? I'd love to take a look.
Yeah.
If you find the link, please do post it in there so everybody can go ahead and check it out too. That's really interesting. So far, everyone's opening statements have been pretty, kind of repetitive. I wanted to say that too. Yeah, they kind of sound similar, just in different words.
Yes,
so,
I agree.
Yeah, and I think we would find something very similar with the Democrat debate.
Sorry, guys. Okay, go ahead.
On foreign policy, the whole theme is, well, you have to sound tougher than the next one, and we have to keep staying the course, and we're being threatened by everything, ISIS, and you name it, and we just have to keep doing the same thing that we're doing, only more intensely, and things will somehow turn out differently. That's kind of the theme for both presidents or both parties when it comes to foreign policy, and unfortunately, there are very few people who are actually carrying the torch for peace and saying maybe what we're doing is causing all of these hazards, not making them, not reducing them. So.
Yeah. So, Jeff, would you say you want smaller government?
Yeah, definitely.
And have any of the candidates that you've seen kind of struck you with that, or you're kind of just, you don't know?
Not really. No, none in this round at all. They all want to maybe slow its growth to one degree or another. But none of them really want to look at what the role of government is and ask, is it too big? To which I would respond, yes. And none of them want to actually roll it back. They just debate over to what degree it should grow.
Right. And where to put that money that they're taking from something, right?
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. So, go ahead, Ben.
Well, on the topic I was saying before, I'd liken it to almost like a theological debate. Like when we have spiritual debates about the nature of God, we're all talking about some sort of agnostic reality that none of us are familiar with. Like, none of us truly know how to deal with the problem of God. In the same way, none of us really know how to deal with the problem of evil or the problem of ISIS. So what ends up happening is we have this sort of emotional or spiritual, rhetorical dialectic between the candidates that ultimately only appeals to emotion and not to sensible logic.
Well, I think if you're for God, pro God, or if you're an atheist, I don't think you want either side benefits from having that discussed in the political realm. That's something that should be discussed outside of politics.
I was just making an analogy. Like, neither of us can prove the existence of God, and neither of us can prove the way in which we should deal with ISIS. And the way in which this political debate is being run is run as an appeal to emotion using very fancy language that strikes, the heartstrings of the American people.
I don't mean to disrespect you, but the ISIS is a much more tangible, this worldly event than God. God is really not.
Issues are not unrelated, right? Because the people of ISIS aren't going to be swayed by the logical structures of conflict, because they in themselves are, their existence is predicated in the notion of God.
Yeah, I see the relation that you're speaking of, Ben. But yeah, I have to agree with Jeff too. You know, the fact that it's a little bit more tangible, something that, you know, more realistic in the sense of, you know, actions. What actions are they going to take? But I comprehend your analogy as well.
Well,
so
I think that a lot of wars in history have been have had religion or some kind of godly view behind them. So it's just a way to rally people together to get them to fight the war that you want them to fight. So I don't know if I don't know what I think about that argument or not.
Guys, let's go back to the debate just to see what they're talking about. We'll go ahead and open up
Previous presidents have gone through. No?
You know, we have a professional political class of both parties. We have been talking about the same issues for election cycle after election cycle. Yeah, government is big and out of control, and the only way to get it under control is to control the money. And the only way to control the money is to ask the federal government to budget the way you do, to examine every dollar, to cut any dollar, to spend, to move any dollar. The fancy word for that is zero-based budgeting. I call it common sense. That 3-page tax code I talk about all the time here in Iowa, it's been around for 20 years. But politicians don't want to talk about it. And you bet the lobbyists don't want to talk about it. In fact, nobody wants to vote on a 3-page tax code or zero-based budgeting, although they've both been around for a long time. You know why? Because if you get those two things done, you are goring everybody's ox. You are taking the political establishment apart. You are actually challenging the status quo, which is what we need in the Oval Office. So you know who I'm going to count on? The citizens of this great nation, because you have extraordinary power. But when you do not use it, you are losing it. So take out your smartphones, folks. The people of Iowa know what I'm talking about. You take out your smartphones. If you agree with me that 3-page tax code needs to be passed, lobbyists aren't going to be in my office. If you agree we got to finally pass zero-based budgeting, take out your smartphones. Press 1 for yes, ladies and gentlemen. Press 2 for no. Citizens, we must take our country back.
Let me stay with you, Ms. Farina. You've said you will shrink the federal government by 30% over the next 2 years, and those jobs will not be filled, and you'll do it through retirement. Your critics would argue that's exactly what you did at Hewlett-Packard when 30,000 people lost their jobs. If it did not work at HP, why would it work at the federal government?
Well, first of all, I haven't said that. What I have said is that in the process of examining every dollar, cutting any dollar, and moving any dollar, we haven't to know that in this vast federal bureaucracy, we have about 260,000 federal government employees, and in 25 years, a great company called Gateway used to be right here in Iowa, but they didn't make the tough calls necessary to save all.
Well, the tax code is a means of controlling people. It's a means of wresting wealth from one group and giving it to another. There's unbelievably powerful lobbies that will make sure that that system continues, and there's just no political momentum behind a flat tax at all. The power, I can't remember who said it, but the power to tax is the power to control. That's what the state does. The tax code is used to redistribute wealth. The progressive tax. That's a laudable goal. I disagree, but no, this can just. It's impossible, the idea that there would ever be this simplified kind of tax code. It's a means of control. It's not just about revenue.
Well, the flat tax, of course, favors the rich. Because the rich, I forget why, but I know that the flat tax favors the rich.
Because they would pay less money of their total.
Well, they pay more.
I mean, he's saying a flat tax would favor the rich.
Create jobs.
Well, the rich pay more taxes.
Wages,
as a percentage of their
provide for themselves and their families, and that's why I announced from a factory floor in Western Pennsylvania I pledge to make America the #1 manufacturing nation again in the world. And we can do it. China is starting to reorient itself away from a manufacturing economy that's dumping products on the overseas to providing more services to their people. This is an opportunity for America. It's an opportunity for us to get those jobs back.
The rich pay,
do you want to
pay more taxes than anybody else. They pay a higher percentage. Even if they pay a lower percentage of their income, if their income is greater, they still pay more taxes. So we play this percentage game, but rich people by and large pay most of the taxes.
Yes.
In the U.S.
Definitely. So I'm gonna put back the debate.
Like neither political party cares about them. You elect me, we'll create opportunities for working men and women in this country, all over this country.
Thank you, Senator.
Governor Huckabee. Nikki Haley, Republican governor from South Carolina, recently said,
"Hey, did you miss me? Did you skip me?"
I did not, but
we have something to say about it. So you just keep going.
You bet, Governor. We have a couple more in the hopper for you in a moment here.
Yeah, I'll be there.
First, Governor Huckabee. Nikki Haley warned about listening to the siren call of the angriest voices, to which Donald Trump said he is very, very angry. Who's right, Governor?
A lot of Americans are angry, and I think it's important to understand why they're mad. They're mad because they see a government that continues to do fine. They see people at the top. They're doing fine. But that person you asked Rick about a moment ago, that lady that's making $10,000 a year, do you know what our poverty programs do to people? They keep them in poverty. They keep them in poverty because we have these arbitrary thresholds that mean that if you go to work, you lose all the benefits for your kids. Medicaid, WIC, Section 8 housing, food stamps, and then your kids go hungry. I know a little about poverty. My sister is here tonight, and both of us could tell you we did not grow up rich. My mother grew up in a house, oldest of 7 kids. She had lived in a house that didn't have floors, just dirt. No electricity, no running water. I resent it when people say, oh, people are poor because they want to be. No, they're not. Nobody wants to be poor. And that's a stupid, foolish thing, mean thing to say. People are poor because they don't know how to get out of the hole. And government shouldn't push them back in the hole, which is what our policies do when they punish people who want to go to work and don't let them out. We can fix that, but it takes some leadership to get it done.
Thank you, Governor.
Thanks to the Iranian nuclear deal, President Rouhani is currently on a tour of Europe, meeting with our close.
What was that, Nectar?
I think that they are just blubbering, trying to get some votes, maybe. Simple as that.
There is no hope for votes. It's just in absence of Trump, just this puppet can just play some game.
There's no entertainment, right?
There's no entertainment, and they are trying to just create some impressions out of nothing.
I actually have a spiritual experience. It has no substance.
Exactly. No substance, meaning not finding any problem, not discussing about the problem, not discussing about any solution. So
I think
that's about it.
I think on welfare, though, I think Huckabee did make some really good points. It is a real problem getting out of the welfare cycle once you're in it, because if you're getting X number of dollars to make that leap out of the welfare cycle and into gainful employment, you do forego a lot of benefits, and you end up, working 40 hours a day or 40 hours a week. I'm sorry, going from working little or no hours a week to 40 hours a week for almost no increase in money. So the way the welfare system is set up, it is very hard to get out of that cycle where you have this free housing, and to get gainful employment, you have to go backwards. And I think he makes a really good point about that. And I think that's why since 1965, welfare has become a generational problem. It's father, son, or mother, daughter. It goes from generation to generation because it is so hard to get out of. And I think he makes a really excellent point there.
Yeah,
can I make an argument?
Yeah, absolutely. Go ahead.
I don't think it's necessary. I mean, of course, the the increase of liquid assets is a necessity in order to rise out of a sort of social, or rather a financial sector. But I think it's more and more that people aren't symbolically capable of breaking free from their own cultural paradigms in terms of like status. Like people at Walmart, for example, which was mentioned earlier, like it's not that those people are lazy or something, it's that they're stuck into a system of culture and a system of society in which they can't even imagine breaking free from their.
How do you think would be the best way to like break free in your opinion?
Well,
economically, I guess, like
by changing the nature of the conversation from a conversation about the minute changes in minimum wage, or the minute changes in taxation, but rather to a conversation about how do we view the world in terms of capital. But this is an entirely different discussion. I
think we know in our own lives that when we hire somebody to do something, we're not trying to make some kind of a social statement. We're trying to have somebody provide us value, and if they provide us a value that we think is worth more than what we have, we pay them to do it.
Let's go back to that.
And there are going to be some people at the margins who are going to be doing jobs that you and I maybe
$30,000 a year. Let's talk about what you
would not want to do.
The Conservative Club for Growth has had an issue with your
Okay.
policy and taxes for
Alrighty,
years. In fact, it called you Tax Hike Mike. And the record shows state spending in Arkansas increased 54% when you were in charge, 94% if you include federal dollars during that same period. When it comes to helping people at the margins, $30,000, $32,000 a year, what's better, a tax and spend approach or shrinking government?
Well, I didn't have a tax and spend approach. You got to understand where the Club for Growth comes from. A bunch of rich guys sitting around writing checks to go after people they don't like. And they don't like me sometimes because I was fighting for the guys at the bottom, not just the guys at the top. I cut 94 taxes in a state that had never had a general major tax decrease in its history. I also was able to see per capita income growth in my state go up by 50%. I think it's a pretty darn good record. Look at the overall record and it was fine. But it's not about stats from when I was governor. Look, one of the reasons I support the fair tax is because it's the one thing, Bill, that would truly empower people at the bottom of the economy by no longer punishing them for their work. If a guy works an hourly job and he works 8 hours, gets paid for it, terrific. But if he works 16 hours, he doesn't get a double paycheck because he's going to be bumped up into a new tax bracket, and the government will get more of his second shift than he will. So we've actually punished him for being industrious, hardworking, and that is a foolish economic policy. That's hurting Americans about as much as anything.
Governor Huck.
Can I say?
I think we had a joiner. I think just want to say hi, Craig.
Jermaine.
Hey.
How are you? Thank you for joining us. Ben, did you have something to say?
Yeah, I had a response to the question you asked me. How do we break free from this sort of socio-capital structure that doesn't allow us to imagine? The answer is to give people hope. And by giving people hope in universal health care, in increasing the minimum wage, we allow people to imagine scenarios beyond the current structural paradigm, which is fascist capitalism.
So in your own words, hope would translate to, in a more tangible manner, healthcare and, raising the minimum wage.
I'm saying that the healthcare system is a form of hope, a form of imagination that allows us to realize a more utopic, idealistic system.
I think, though, the argument that was made earlier was that if you raise the minimum wage, you're only devaluing the money, and you're making it higher wage. But
I don't think you'll do anything at all. I think you're going to change. Well,
suppose the output of my labor is only worth $10 an hour, and you you say that, okay, I no longer can accept a job for $10 an hour. I have to, people have to pay me at least $15, and therefore they don't hire me because I can't be productive enough to justify people paying that wage. How does that give me hope and all these good feelings that you think I should have if I'm unemployed, if I have 100% of nothing versus 50% of something?
But you're looking at it through too narrow of a perspective. You're looking at it through the perspective of one business as opposed to the entire economic system. Like when we increase the level of when we increase the wages to certain individuals who deserve it and increase it for others that perhaps don't, what we're doing is effectively transferring the wealth from the corporate level to the marginal social level, and those social workers will then
people who deserve a higher wage tend to get a higher wage. Most people in the U.S., by the way, do not work for the minimum wage. The minimum wage is only like 2 to 3% of the population. So the people that do deserve it, nice visual effects. I saw some stars there as well. But most people who deserve a minimum wage, like presumably you or me, we get lots more than the minimum wage. But we don't do it because somebody's enlightened or whatever. We do it because we produce more value than those who are ranking below the minimum wage. And what you're doing is you're not really doing much of anything for the people who already can make a higher wage, but for those who aren't productive enough, you're relegating them to eventual unemployment.
You're arguing by example, though.
Well, what's wrong with that?
Well, because I can just use a counter example. That's what's wrong with that.
Okay, well, go ahead and use one.
I
Hi,
did.
Craig. Thank you for joining us there.
There are jobs that are underpaid.
We're actually talking about minimum wage. Do you want to weigh in on this?
I'm waiting to hear them finish their points. It's a little incoherent yet. They can speak. That's a first. You guys can actually speak.
Thank you.
I'm impressed. That's the first it's done.
Go ahead, Ben.
I'm still waiting for them to finish their points.
I just have a question. By what standard would you say that somebody is underpaid? That's
the notion of value that you just
right. If I pay you to do something and you agree to do it for that wage, you're not underpaid. We've both voluntarily, consensually set upon terms. If you refuse that payment, then I'm not offering enough. And if I refuse to pay you, then you're asking too much from my perspective, and you go to somebody else. That's what a market's all about.
Just a market, of course. Right. 100%.
Right. So that's there's really no such thing as being underpaid in a free market. If you're not producing the value that somebody else wants to pay, you're not underpaid. You're underproductive.
Well, I don't think that's a problem with the individual. I think that's a problem with the system itself. That's what I'm saying about imagination. We're not creating a society.
Your problem is with a voluntary system, and anything that would circumvent that would be a coercive system.
So what changed?
Somebody stop those stupid emoticons.
Sorry, guys. Let's pick this up. Let's watch the debate really quick.
Jesus Christ. I'm like watching a billion things at once. It's stupid.
Overstimulated.
Thank you.
Here's the deal. Hillary Clinton has been climbing the ladder to try and get power. And here now she is trying for the White House. She's probably more qualified for the big house. Honestly. She's escaped prosecution more times than El Chapo. Perhaps Sean Penn should interview.
Oh my gosh.
The woman should be prosecuted. But
That was pretty funny, actually.
And while Mrs. Clinton has flown hundreds of thousands of miles around the globe, I have too. I know that flying is an activity, not an accomplishment. While I know that she has held many positions and many titles, she
Make
has
sure
not
you use
accomplished
headphones
much
so we don't
anything
hear
in
the
her
echo
life.
of your
She's got
computer.
every single policy challenge wrong, and she continues to lie to the American people. You see, it's called the Clinton way. Both Bill and Hillary practice it the Clinton way. Say whatever you have to say, do whatever you have to say, lie as long as you can get away with it. Hillary Clinton cannot be the president of these United States.
All right, Carly, I want to stay with you on this next question as well. You waded into the Planned Parenthood video story early on. You took some heat for it. Now the people who shot that undercover video are the ones who got indicted, and Planned Parenthood is untouched. Hillary Clinton's been crowing about this. Any regrets about this?
You know, Hillary Clinton hasn't been indicted either. So that tells us a lot about our justice system in this country. But look, the facts of Planned Parenthood have not changed, folks. And I will not be rendered silent on this issue or any other issue, and it doesn't matter what stage I'm on. Here are the facts. Planned Parenthood engages in partial birth abortion, in late-term abortion. They alter those abortion techniques to harvest and sell body parts. They have admitted that they're not going to accept compensation for this anymore. The reality is most Americans find this practice horrific. Most Americans find horrific that Hillary Clinton's position on this is it's not a life until it's born. Most Americans find horrific Hillary Clinton's position, or the Democrat Party's position, that a young woman does not need her mother's permission to get an abortion. But if you're 13 years old, you can get an abortion, but you can't go to a tanning salon without your mother's permission. In a President Fiorina budget, there will not be one dime for Planned Parenthood, although there would be a lot of money for women's health, and we will finally pass the Pain-Capable Unborn Child Protection Act. I will always stand for life and religious liberty because this is about the character of our nation.
Thank you, Carly Fiorina. Let me just ask a quick question.
So how do we feel about Carly Fiorina and her statements against Secretary Hilton
to attend the March for Life?
Not Hilton, Clinton.
Well, I've been to March for
and
about
her statements,
years,
you know, about
and,
how she would
I think that's a
during
pretty good
her
record.
presidency. Does anybody have any thoughts?
Carly Fiorina period. I have a comment for Jeff Keller, but Carly Fiorina is done. She's a clown. So I have a comment. I mean, if no one has a problem with this, I have something to say to Jeff Keller in regards to his previous comment. In regards to if I'm willing to pay someone $10 to do something and they're agree to it, therefore we have a contract. Therefore nobody's getting paid minimum wage. Right now, let's take it back 100 years ago. A 12-year-old boy mining. He has no choice. Someone told him, "I'll give you a sandwich if you go down go down there and give me some coal." Is this your idea of free market? Because that's what free market is. So an idea of just free market and saying that that's in some way is a human way to exist. To me, and we have historical evidence over thousands of years of historical evidence proving that free market is really, different project free market, but let's say if we just take free market with the United States 100 years ago.
How many years ago?
What free market is. It's 15-year-old kids, it's 16.
I'm sorry, how many years ago did you say?
I'm talking about 100 years ago.
100 years ago. Okay, I didn't hear you.
It's happening now. I mean, don't think about it 100 years ago. The African mining industry is predicated in child slave labor. So.
Sure. We can look at any system and at its inception how things changed from then to now, and we will find that it's a lot more primitive and a lot more crude, and we can't even imagine the conditions that people worked under 100 years ago. But the question is, did they improve because of feudalism or fascism or communism or socialism, or did they improve because of freedom and free markets? It actually happened. Just let me finish. When there were children living in factories, those alternatives, as deplorable as we might think they are today, were actually preferable to the conditions that the children and the families found themselves under before industrialization. So they weren't drafted or dragooned into working into factories. As awful as these factories were, they were better alternatives.
So, Jeff, so you're the same guy that would say, you know what, let's not invest into green energy. Let's continue with the powering everything with coal. Instead of, a crappy job is better than a really better job. Crappy environmental, conditions of work conditions are better than no conditions at all. So we're talking about civilized world. Let's forget about, Asia today. Let's forget about Africa today. I'm talking about civilized world, free market, 100% free market. It was 100 years ago. What changed? It wasn't fascism. It was nothing but the New Deal. It was nothing but socialism.
No, what happened was we became more productive. We don't need children. We don't need backbreaking labor. We have capital goods. We have things like the computers now. Hold on. We have things. No, none of these were brought about by socialism. These were brought about by free enterprise, by and large.
Well, they are socialist.
Well, stop interrupting me. I'm almost done. So we have. Well, if you want to talk over me, then we'll never get anywhere. But
fine, go ahead.
But what happened was we had it's a primitive industrial society, but as innovation occurred, people's backbreaking labor gave way to capital goods, which made us productive without our muscles or our brawn, and we've become productive because of all the capital goods that have been created by the free market, such as computers and machinery.
What you're saying is that
All right, Jeff.
I was going to say,
okay,
you're right that with the increase of the industrial capital system, we were allowed greater freedoms, but that's the exact point. The exact point is that with the increase of the financial sector, with the increased production from the financial sector, with the increased cash flow of the highest percent of, the rich making as much money as they do, that we are now allowed the social freedom to not, use child labor or have poor working conditions, et cetera, et cetera.
That sounds like a good thing to me.
It is a good thing, but that's why now we should reanalyze the system and perhaps institute a minimum wage, because it's not inconceivable.
A livable minimum wage. Because, ladies and gentlemen, today there's not a state in the union where you can afford proper housing, working 40 hours a week, getting paid minimum wage. That's a fact. That's a fact. So this idea of, that's why that comment of yours kind of irked me a little bit, is that, well, no one gets paid minimum wage. Guess what? Many people, it depends what you consider minimum wage, but let's go, if we don't consider minimum wage what federally, what federal government says is minimum wage. Let's say minimum wage is minimal wage for proper living conditions.
Lots of people make less than the minimum wage. Bernie Sanders has interns working in his office that make nothing. And yet I'm sure he thinks that's just fine, because
I'm sure that's everyone though.
It's so special. Yeah, of course.
Well, if not, of course, if you don't have Goldman Sachs paying for your campaign, then of course you probably couldn't afford to pay anyone.
Bernie says you just ought to pay everyone. There's no excuses. Why should he be exempt from this? Why shouldn't he live by example? He's not even paying $15 an hour, from what I read, and some of his staff don't even make that wage that he thinks everybody ought to pay. It shows that people should be paid based on their productivity. And
but who decides that?
Who in the world?
Tell me, Jeff. Let me ask you something.
The customer decides.
Walmart is a huge corporation, right?
Right.
Billions of dollars of profit every year. Who's to decide that the CEO is more important than someone that's picking up boxes. Because if everyone that's picking up boxes and stands at the register, if they have if certain states like Florida with, right to work, if they don't prevent people from striking, the moment people organize, that company is done. So you tell me who's more important. So is it okay?
It's not about somebody being more important or not. It's like, if picking up boxes is only worth $10 an hour to me, some congressman coming along and saying I have to pay $15 for it, I will do other things. I will hire one box picker-upper rather than two, or I will look for alternatives such as automation. And that's happened throughout history. When the minimum wages went up earlier, I'm sorry, when I was a young person, which was a long time ago, there used to be ushers in movie theaters. So when you would have to get up and go to the bathroom, there was some guy with a flashlight and he would show you out. Guess what? That was a minimum wage job back then. When the minimum wage went up, there's no more. Have you ever seen a movie usher? Probably not. Those jobs went away. Or there used to be elevator operators. When the minimum wage got high enough, those people became unemployed. There was no such thing as the minimum wage or an elevator operator, because somebody had to operate the elevator under that system. And when they became too expensive, they automated the process. And that's what happens over time. And that's what you're doing. You can't change the laws of economics because of social feel-good ideas. It just doesn't work.
Well, there seem to be every single developed nation in this world, except for the United States of America, seem to be able to operate democratic socialism, and it works just fine. Everybody's happy. Everybody works, 35 to 40 hours a week, have free health care. It's okay. Yet, however, here, what is this? The center of civilization when it comes to,
what about, sorry to interrupt you, but what about Southern Europe that's having a lot of problems because of their social programs and how they're going bankrupt, and they have high unemployment, and they have all these things?
More reading about these socialist paradises that you read about in your magazine.
No one said it was a paradise, but the quality of living is better.
They're very stagnant, very stagnant. Each one has its own story. So if you want to talk about one in particular, you can talk about with a little more subtlety and nuance.
So basically, I guess
Sweden, for example, is one that's trotted out. But one of the reasons Sweden is so wealthy, it's the old joke: how do you become a millionaire under a socialist system? Well, you start out as a billionaire. So Sweden was a free market, laissez-faire country for decades and decades. It accumulated a whole lot of capital. So the destructiveness of its socialist policies of late have been slower to encroach upon it than most places, but it has horrible problems. It's economically stagnant. It hasn't grown for decades. It's on the path to ruin, but not as quickly as some nation states that never had a free market system to begin with. So you have to look at the big picture and not just
war and
these
challenge that we're
snapshots from
this issue of veterans' rights, the issue of Second Amendment.
Hey guys, sorry to interrupt. Let's listen to the debate really quick.
Rick Santorum.
I just want to thank the people of Iowa. Over the last 5 years, I've done 700 speeches and town hall meetings all throughout the state of Iowa, and it has been an incredible ride. Thank you. I want to thank all the wonderful folks like Pastor Kerry Gordon, who gave me a smooth stone and said you could slay Goliath. Someone like Jim and Tana Cook, who over this past Christmas gave up Christmas presents for their kids, and they have more than I do, just so they could help me on my campaign. That's the kind of people in Iowa.
Christmas.
And here's what I'm asking you to do. You're good people. Good leaders lead. Pick the right person, not what the polls say, not who the money people give to. Pick the leader you know is best for this country. Thank you.
Mayor Huckabee.
Well, this week there was a little dust up about a video we put together with the music of Adele. So I thought it'd be appropriate for me to begin tonight by saying, hello, Iowa. It's me. And you know me. You gave me the largest number of votes in the history of the Iowa caucus 8 years ago. And I think you did it because you trusted me. You believed that I had your best interest at heart. When I was governor, I had a little plaque in my office, in the governor's office, and it simply said this: come, let us reason together. I believe the next president needs to put that plaque in the Oval Office and needs to lead this country by saying, come, let us reason together. God bless you, and thank you for your support.
Thank you, Governor.
Carly Fiorina.
In over 150 events, I have come to know and love the people of Iowa. And the people of Iowa know what the rest of Americans have figured out. This ain't working anymore. The government no longer works for those who pay for it. The professional political class says and does whatever they need to do to win and then does whatever they please. We need to return to a citizen government. That is why I'm running for president. The media, the establishment, they all want to tell you this election's over. They know who's going to win it, except that you haven't cast a single vote yet. So the people of Iowa, stand with me, fight with me, caucus for me. It is time to take our country back.
Thank you, Carly.
That concludes our debate tonight, but the night has just begun.
In 1 hour, 7 more candidates take the stage for a debate hosted by Brett Baer, Megyn Kelly, and Chris Wallace.
Oh, so they didn't even have
Neil
the
Riley
main
Factor. Good night, everybody.
No, I guess not. The kid table.
Oh.
All right, guys.
So we're about to hand it over to our next host to continue the debate. But,
Hi, I'm Bill O'Reilly reporting tonight from Los
thank you for
Angeles.
joining us, and please
The big
do stay.
Republican debate.
Up next, you have
And
Andres
reaction to
and
Donald
Victoria.
Trump on the fact
Thank
last
you.
night. That is
You
the
both did an
subject.
excellent job in moderating.
You guys, thank you guys.
Well, we
Awesome.
received about 7,000 emails from you guys commenting on Mr. Trump's decision not to attend the Republican debate in Iowa this evening, and of course, about his chat with me. There was massive press
Hi,
coverage
I'm
on that,
Victoria.
and I'll run it down for you real
I'm
quick.
Andres.
See,
Hi, Victoria.
there. ABC's Good Morning America.
Alright, so we got the topic of the GOP debate.
Today's
Is
show,
that right?
he's a reporter named Peter Alexander.
Can you turn off O'Reilly?
All but begged Trump to lead the debate.
Please.
MSNBC, we don't even monitor anymore.
Where's
CNN was
O'Reilly?
strange.
What were you
They're
guys just
using
talking about? What was the
hatchet
big,
men
the
to
big
attack
topic of
Fox News,
conversation?
but Anderson Cooper
Thus
was
far.
the
What are you guys
worst
talking about before?
old.
Can you turn off the audio from O'Reilly? Are you able to do that?
O'Reilly is scared to death of Megyn Kelly because Megyn Kelly's been
I
beating
can't
him
find
in
O'Reilly.
ratings. The first time that's
Here.
happened.
Well, whatever's
since,
on Fox,
it's been on Fox,
it's
has been
kind
on,
of-
the news channel's been on the air.
Oh, I
Whatever's on
Of course,
Fox.
that is
There you go.
absolutely
Oh, no, you
false.
didn't.
Did you get it?
False.
No, I
Not
haven't
true.
found it. One
Oh
second.
yeah.
And
Okay.
that's why
Sorry guys. One
doesn't
second.
work here at Fox anymore. He
Hi,
could
Vlad,
care less
Meriscope, and
about facts.
Meriscope.
On the newspaper side,
Meerkat
you
users.
know, there wasn't
My
anything
bad, sorry,
horrendous.
don't come to get
Papers
me.
like the New York Times, LA Times, Washington Post, they don't really care for FNC or Donald Trump.
So what do you guys?
But in this case, there weren't any distortions or fabrications, the kind of stuff we see on the left-wing internet sites.
So what do you guys
Perhaps
think
the
about
most
the
interesting
whole Donald
analysis was
Trump
done by Chris
being
Cillizza
not
in
involved in the
Washington
GOP debate?
He puts forth that Trump
Thus
is
far.
so far out in
I
hair
think it's a smart
that he
move.
doesn't need any more
You think
debates.
it's a smart move?
So that's why
Yeah, he already has it.
the excuses he made
It's
were
been
all
shown that no matter what
It's
he
impossible
says
to say
or what he
whether that's
does,
true,
his
but it's
candidates
certainly
are going to
a
like him
theory.
anyways. And seeing as he already has
On
a
the viewer
significant
front,
enough
about
amount of
70% of the
population to
folks thought
support
the
him,
interview was worthy.
he's not going to find
30%
any benefit
hated
in
it.
appealing to the Fox News.
Sarah Skelton, Yukon,
demographic.
Canada. Riley, I'm not sure.
That's true, but you got to
what type
keep
of car
also
you
keep into
drive.
consideration
I'm
that
guessing
he's not
there's
just
a Donald Trump bumper sticker on the back.
not participating
Frank
in
Richardson,
the
Newport
debate
News,
itself
Virginia.
just
Bill,
because
thanks for pressing
it's
Trump.
smart.
Based on
But
his
there's a
hiring
lot
against
of
FNC, I will have a
views
very
going on
difficult
between
time
him,
supporting
Megyn
him.
Kelly, and just the Fox
Matt
network
Smith,
as well.
Appleton, Wisconsin. O'Reilly,
For all
you
you guys who
claim
don't
America
know,
wants to
the
get
feud
to
between
know
Megyn
Trump.
Kelly and
Since
Donald
when?
Trump
Is that
remains
your
to be
job?
that
Well,
for the past couple
I believe it's
days and whatnot.
Republican 2016 presidential candidates are due to take to the.
Oh, can you please turn off the background? We can hardly hear.
The background. You got it?
No, we had the Fox News stuff that's still blaring on.
Okay.
It's good now. You got it.
Okay. Yeah.
I'm sorry, it was really hard to hear.
No, it's fine.
Hold on.
There's like
Trump cannot be rehabilitated.
there's so
Not
much
that
going
that's
on right
only
now
see
about how
their point of view.
like
Pat
on and on and
Hofstadter,
on
yep.
about Trump not being involved and different people's takes on it. I agree with the earlier comment that it's smart. I think everyone's talking about him right now. No one's talking about everyone being on, like being a part of the election. Everyone's talking about how he is not a part of this debate.
Yeah. And I think he's doing his own thing, right? He's having his own televised event. So that'll probably most of the people who probably tune into these snooze fests do so to see him.
Yeah, of course.
He's gonna say that, so they'll just take the ratings away from Fox and.
It pretty much came to an end.
Who actually thinks that Donald Trump is a serious candidate and he's in it to win the presidency? And how far can he go with basically Ku Klux Klan and right-wingers supporting him?
Yeah.
The fringe of the Republican Party.
I do think that, I don't know if he's in it as much to win presidency as he is in it as much to win the game.
What do you mean?
I think for him it's almost like, I've done a lot of other things, I could do this. Like I think it's just like another bucket list thing for him to achieve. He doesn't seem to take it as seriously as some of the other candidates, but it comes a lot easier to him because of the other things that he's achieved. It like a lot of his skills are what people like, not his personality. They like the things he's accomplished.
What skills?
Not necessarily skills. You're right. That was a bad word.
Nunchuck skills. What does he have?
More like the experience he's been through. Like as a businessman. But he was in bankruptcy 2 years ago, and now he's out. It normally takes someone a lot more than 2 years to get out of bankruptcy.
So we should be impressed with that?
Takes a lot of corporate welfare.
There are pros and cons.
Yeah.
A lot of people criticized Obama for not having enough balls in politics, and I think people are tired of Donald Trump either, rhetorically, politically has gravitas.
Yeah.
Who else would have taken it? There's no one else on that stage.
That's true. Well, you have also Marco Rubio also.
Marco
Rubio
taking
a stand as well, and it's their time, as what they're saying, to to actually take over right now, because since Donald Trump has withdrawn from it, he's not going to be able to talk about current issues ongoing.
They haven't there hasn't been a single, until, believe it or not, Huckabee is religious, Huckabee is an interesting dude, which I can't stand. But so far, he's the only one that's mentioned any type of actual social issues instead of concentrating on, the boogeyman of ISIS, like Rubio bought. I mean, you're a young dude, you have a lot of time to be a president at some point. Why would you come out and say that I bought a gun on Christmas to protect my family from ISIS in Florida?
Of course.
It's just there right there. I mean, he had some good ideas. He's overall is not a bad dude for a Republican, but
yeah.
I mean, come on, guy.
Yeah, so far as Marco Rubio goes, that is definitely a case. But definitely the talk of the night has got to be Ted Cruz taking the center stage spot, which is the first time he has ever done so in a Republican GOP debate.
And that's been giving him a lot of, there's a lot of people that were talking about how that was going to be a good thing for him and get him farther in the polls. But there was also a lot of articles I was reading how that could be really bad for him, because that puts him center attention and puts him as the target for all the other candidates to bring down.
Yeah. And for Jeff, no?
Yeah, Jeff, who are you voting for, man?
Yeah, how about you?
Who am I voting for? You got me there.
Who are you leaning towards the most in this race thus far?
I guess, and I'm not very excited. I guess I would say Rand Paul would be the closest.
Come on, he doesn't have a chance. Someone that's electable.
I don't like anybody that's electable.
So you're not going to vote?
I usually don't vote. Correct.
Yeah.
Hey, man.
Well, on the part of the Democrats is Bernie Sanders all the way. I believe so. And I see you with the Bernie shirt. I see you with the Bernie shirt. Of course, I'm taking note of it. Don't worry about that. I'm a Bernie Sanders fan.
I won't be voting for him as well.
Yeah. But in regards to the whole Republican race and the GOP, I have to say that I'm definitely not on board with Donald Trump whatsoever, just because I don't agree with his kind of radical ideals. And sure, he may be touching upon some valid points. For the most part, his campaigns and just everything that he's done in the past debate over in, I forgot what the last one was, but he was talking very ill about Megyn Kelly on Fox News, one of the anchors, and that stirred a lot of panic between the two. Fox Business.
And since she's raising a lot of the questions, or she's one of the questionnaires, of course he's afraid that she's going to be asking them directed toward him to make him look like an idiot. Which, I mean, he has done himself well.
Yeah.
But
has he said I'm sorry, go ahead. Has he said anything? Has he actually proposed anything concrete? Has he said, the guy just, he's there to sell a new TV show next year. It's apparent, it's obvious. He has nothing else to say. He's been saying the same old thing over and over again without anything concrete. So now he's like, I don't need a debate. Of course he doesn't. He has nothing else to say. So now who's next? Rubio or Cruz? And both of those guys, they don't stand a chance even against Hillary, who, I'm not a big fan.
Yeah.
I agree. I think that he doesn't normally give a lot of concrete. He normally talks about how bad Obama has been, and that's kind of about it. Like he doesn't really have he has opinions about someone he's not even running against.
Exactly.
And he doesn't give someone on Meerkat at Halliburg said that it's his confidence that gets him leading, even though he's not there, that people admire his confidence. And I agree. I think that no matter what his viewpoints are, he's given attention because he stands out amongst the others, just because he has confidence that, like said earlier, Obama didn't have, and a lot of people said Obama didn't.
But what does it say about the electorate? What does it say about the fringe of the Republican Party, the KKK, the right-wingers? What does it say about millions of people in this country that are, they're on board with whatever he has to say? I mean, just think, let that settle in for a second. We have millions of people in this country that think confidence is enough.
You do know that this KKK began under the Democrat Party, the Southern Democrats, don't you?
Oh, absolutely. I mean,
Robert Byrd was a KKK member, prominent Democrat up until the 90s.
That right? Is that right?
Yeah, absolutely.
Really? I actually never knew that.
Oh yeah, no, the KKK were strictly Southern Democrats. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, both parties are not the same parties even from 15 years ago. So, I mean, if you want to get technical, let's get technical. But this is, I mean, even the Republican Party started with the one 30 years ago.
Historically, it's a Democrat institution.
Sure, but I mean, you know, I would say that.
Well, you very blithely assigned it to the Republican Party, and I'm telling you that of either party, that's the least likely party to which that label should stick.
Yeah,
I'm not a Republican.
Either way, though.
The Republican Party was the party of supposedly Lincoln and freeing slavery as well. So that's
back to Lincoln.
So what's that?
You're gonna bring it back to Abe?
Yeah. Anyway, guys,
you brought it back to the KKK.
Yeah, but
somebody's tomatoing me. I guess they like slavery. I don't.
All right.
I guess they like the KKK.
Something about Trump. Yeah, but guys, let's take this over to. Yeah, what's going on?
Say what you want to say.
Okay, I think what Donald Trump just did about not going into this debate against Megyn Kelly, I think it's very troublesome because, from my eyes, I see it. If you can't go one-on-one or whatever, or go to a debate where there's one of the best journalists in America, you can go against her. You tell me you're gonna defeat ISIS. You tell me you're gonna sit down and litigate with Putin or like whatever happened in the Middle East.
When you're scared of a news anchor on Fox News Network, exactly.
Which is great. I think she's one of the best anchors in the United States, if you ask me. But if you can do that, then you're signing up for a big job, and this is your interview. So I think just by that small gesture that he, I think it rules him out, at least in my eyes. I could be wrong, but again, I'm not voting, so that's just my point of view at it.
I agree, though. Like, I definitely see that point. I think that it's I don't know. Yeah, it kind of makes him look, since he has been giving a lot of attention for. Whoops.
Well, I feel like it doesn't matter. This is what he's signing up for. This he's signing up to be the eye of the hurricane.
Yeah, and
signing up for the toughest job in the world. I cannot tell you otherwise. As much as people can trust Obama and all the presidents prior to him, this is kind of a big thing. So if you can't take on a journalist who's asking you questions, regardless, you don't like the question, that's fine. But if you can address that, you telling me you're gonna have the power to push nuclear weapons and so forth. I think that's a bit scary to give him that much control.
Like, it makes his confidence a lot phony, a lot more like.
Yeah, I kind of agree with you that that he couldn't stand up to this this reporter. I think that's a really good point. I don't think anybody really is qualified to be president to have that suitcase following him around where he can punch in the nuclear weapons. I wouldn't trust anybody with that authority.
Yeah.
Particularly this group of freaks that we're presented with.
7 candidates.
Yeah. But no, that's how that struck me too. He's he's a media. He's more media savvy than anybody at Fox or anybody. He's been in media for decades, and that he can't hold his own with this person, and he has to run away. I think that is kind of craven and cowardly.
No, it definitely is. And I'm going to start this one thing right now that showed up on our feed, and it says Trump threatens to skip Fox debate over Megyn Kelly, and it just goes to show that it's a general overview of it, but it just goes to talk about how he is too scared to actually confront a moderator for the Fox GOP debate because he's afraid that they are going to ask him questions that he will not be able to answer in a manner that he wishes to do so. And on that note, let's tune back on to the live debate.
I like our debates.
And the world knows that now, so I still think Cruz has got an upside. I thought Charles Krauthammer was pretty insightful about some of the others, and that maybe this is sort of a three-way race. The question will be for this debate, can these candidates avoid start attacking each other and keep the focus on taking some cheap shots on Trump if he's not there to defend himself, or will they descend into a scramble? I would be shocked if anybody mentioned Trump. Now, you say you debated Cruz. Where was that? Yeah, he was at Princeton and I was at Yale. So we used to debate pretty much every week. Did you guys? I was thinking it was an Ivy League debate. Did you guys wear short pants and stuff and little bow ties when you were debating? Yeah, I wish. He sometimes did have a bow tie. All right, now I don't think that any. I know that the candidates are going to go after each other a little bit. Particularly Rubio and Cruz, but that's a good thing. All
right, well, the video was interrupted, guys. What do you think about the Rubio and Cruz feud thus far? What do you think is going to come out of it? What do you think? What points do you guys believe that they're going to address to try and gain the hearts of the American people? What do you think?
Yeah, what do you think are the common questions that are going to be asked? Like, I feel like it's always the same ones. Like, what are you going to do about ISIS? What are you going to do about the debt that
immigrants
related?
Isn't that their big thing? Because I think wasn't Cruz? He was a big immigration guy until recently, until he held his finger to the air to see how things were going. Whereas I think Rubio is kind of not an open borders guy. Well, kind of an open borders guy. Although with strings attached.
No, it's true. It's true. And with Rubio and that topic of immigration coming up too, it begs a thought of with Syria. Yeah, and talking about guns. And on top of that, the Syria refugees that are pretty much immigrants that different countries are trying to accept. For instance, Sweden is perhaps getting rid of denying over 50,000 refugees, Syrian refugees. And on top of that, the United States is eventually going to have to take in some of those people. And it's a matter of what these candidates are going to say, whether they touch upon, should they bring in these refugees? Do they think it's economically right? And it just bases on how people look at it.
That kind of makes me think of what, Pedro, you were saying earlier, how like being the U.S. president is like the hardest job out there. I think it's would be frustrating to be a president, like, if I were to put myself in those shoes, which I would never be. Yeah. But because of things like that, because of immigration laws, like, do you have to because of like moral standards, or because in general people would think it's right that those people need a place to go, or do you not because economically for your country that's not the best move to make? Is it a business move or is it a moral move?
Is there statistic evidence that it's not a good thing to take immigrants? I mean, throughout the history of this country and many others, taking on immigrants has worked out for the best, actually. I mean,
I agree.
I think also, like, I think the biggest issue is the illegal part of it.
I agree.
The part, like, when people just walk across and they're not legally stamped. No, legally. Because see, I'm pretty sure none of you guys, I'm pretty sure all of you guys are.
So if we stamp people, they're okay? No.
Let me explain. The way that you visit the United States from a different country, if you're not a neighboring country, like, I'm saying that you have to fly there. You have to go to the United States Embassy.
Yes.
In the United States, you have to make an appointment. You have to show your bank statements. You got to show your assets to them so they can see that you have wealth in this country. And you're not gonna just take up your things and like leave right away. They like to check what kind of person are you. They like to check if you're a criminal, if you at least go to high school, if you know how to read and write. So
what, to visit or to get a
visa? To visit. For you to have a visa stamp.
Hey, I get tomatoed even if I ask like a question.
Not me.
What is going
on? My head, it's not me.
It's not him. It's not him. His hands are not.
I just asked a clarifying question, and somebody really hates me.
After you put the visa, then you have to get your plane ticket, and when you do immigration, you show your visa, and so forth and so on. But they're already keeping track of you, kind of thing. They have, like, you know who you are, they know who you're from, they know how much money you have. Then eventually you can make that transfer by moving your assets there, maybe claiming political asylum. Because if you are really running away from your country, you can claim political asylum, stating that I'm being persecuted in my country for whether it's like politics, or politics are after me, the ideology or what I believe in.
Okay.
Religion. I'm pretty sure gang related. Just something you're not safe there.
It's not really that easy. Have you ever heard of like the USS? I'm sorry, just really as a side note, you ever heard of the USS St. Louis? So back when the U.S. was enemies with Germany, there was a ship of Jewish refugees who came to the U.S. The first they came to Havana Harbor, and then they came to Miami, and they were persecuted Jews who were going to be killed by Hitler. The U.S. sent them back, and this happened with Operation Keelhaul. Russian refugees were sent back to certain death. Also, so it's not been that easy to come in and say you were persecuted. It has been easier in some periods than others, but it's typically not that easy.
If you have that, then you can either you qualify to come, you don't, you don't. And I feel like being as an immigrant, I think that's just nothing but fair. That's nothing but fair.
But that happens in other countries too. That's any country. There are rules to get into any country. Like there's a lot of countries you don't have access to at all. Even if you're an American citizen, there are countries you don't have access to if you've ever been to Israel and if that's on your passport. Like now if you go to Israel, they won't even stamp your passport. You're given an additional piece of paper because a lot of countries won't let you in their country, even if you've just been there to visit for like a day.
Yeah. Well, the U.S. prospered as, I think it was, I'm sorry, Erin said, immigration, I favor the policies that we had in the early 20th century where you went to Ellis Island and they determined that you didn't have a disease and they let you in. And most people in the world are peaceful. And if you're attracting the wrong kind of people, then you have the wrong kind of policies. If you're attracting freeloaders and stuff like that, maybe your welfare system needs to be tweaked or anything. But immigration, if you take the government out of it, that's just travel. There's people traveling, and people. You want productive people to come where they're going to be the most productive. And if that's in the U.S., then they should be allowed to come here and work and live, just like anybody else, as long as they're peaceful and they don't hurt anybody.
The illegal part of it is wrong. The illegal part of it.
Well, it's wrong that it's illegal. It's not.
If I can jump in.
The thing about it, sorry about that. The thing about that is, too, keeping this into consideration, too, with the whole illegal aspect of immigration being a thing, and Pedro, you're completely right about how it's a problem that people can just walk across the border and then people get so fessed up about it. But you guys know about, what was it? It was a drug lord in Mexico. I forgot his name, who was just convicted for selling a boatload of drugs. And this man, I forgot his name. Oh, man. El Chapo? El Chapo, yes, El Chapo. That's exactly it.
You don't know El Chapo. Everybody knows El Chapo.
I know El Chapo. I lost his name for a second. My bad. But, so the whole situation with El Chapo is that after his being convicted for what he did, the United States and Mexico they had Mexican country, Mexico itself started taking in United States soldiers onto their soil more willingly in a way that they were working together. So now we're building ties between Mexico and the United States, which might further legalization of immigrants crossing the border, perhaps without documentation.
Well,
and we got to keep that in consideration.
If you don't want to have drug lords and a drug war and drug problems, then don't have a war against drugs.
I love you, Jeff.
These are peaceful people, and the only reason we have these horrific international incidents is over this insane drug war that's gone on for decades.
It's true. And we're gonna switch over to the live broadcast now of the debate. Just tune in, see what they're talking about.
Go back to the drug issue.
Oh, never mind, guys.
Our debate's much better than theirs.
I think so.
It's so lame.
Yeah.
Not huge, but oh, I have a plaque. I have a plaque on my wall that says. Go ahead.
We have to remember the Immigration Act of 1924 was set into place to kind of keep the United States balanced. It's 2% to 3% of each country.
I will say this, Bill. In all likelihood, maybe Monday nights, maybe early Tuesday morning, you're gonna get a couple people in all likelihood dropping from this race. That we just said. We just said that, and where that support goes is not huge, but it is significant. Be fine. Now, so they don't know McCallum. They know they're not.
Yeah, who's talking?
Just generally speaking, the drug laws and the
continue, Jeff.
Fight any kind of social utilitarian arguments have been racially motivated for the most part, and the drug wars are the great example of the opium wars. The war against opium was a war against Chinese immigrants who were taking our jobs, and marijuana was a war against blacks and Mexicans. So these things
I don't know
are
if
all
I completely agree. Like even China was trying to stop the big movement of opium because they were losing a lot of workers because people weren't concentrating, they weren't focused, and they couldn't get people.
Yeah, that was
they couldn't raise their country's economy because in general everyone was doing opium.
I've never heard that.
Like, let's be real.
The Chinese were the reason the people went after opium in the United States was not because the Chinese were lethargic and not working. It's because they were taking American jobs because they were too energetic. So I don't know about that Chinese side of the narrative, but on the U.S. side, they were against the opium because they were against the Chinese for being so competitive and taking U.S. jobs, particularly in San Francisco. They made up all these kind of crazy ideas that, they were seducing our women and impregnating them and all kinds of crazy crap. This has been the story of the drug war in the U.S. Maybe it was the same in China. I don't know, but it was a different story here.
Yeah, they disappear. Oh no.
It's always someone, raping and abusing white women.
Yeah. Right.
Let's start stuff. It's Jeff's right on point, and this most recent bust of the DEA agents basically not sheltering, but they protecting one of the biggest drug lords. That's there you go right there. Billions of dollars going into this war on drugs.
The social costs of the drug war are almost hard to calculate. I mean, you look at the corruption of law enforcement, the erosion of our civil liberties.
Private prisons.
You watch a movie from like the 1970s where they say, well, we have your house surrounded. Please come out. They don't do that now. They use a battering ram. Guess where that came from? It's from the drug war. It's so you wouldn't flush the evidence down the toilet. The drug war has the social cost, the spread of disease with needles, the list just goes on and on. Yeah, AIDS with dirty needles, stuff like that. Corrupt law enforcement, you name it.
Because he's not showing up.
Yeah.
There'd be a lot more.
I think also like everything and like all this war on drugs and the whole thing like El Chapo and like how much money he has and how much power and like Pablo Escobar and all of that stuff. That's really who really fund those people who really were paying their money. That was American. American and European junkies. They were the ones who were flowing the machine. So as long as there are American, and I say Americans and Europeans because they're the ones who really pay top dollar for like the big shipments. That's what they're the most consumer of the drug. So I think if the same government could get our own profit off of that, which they do. I don't know if you guys heard the movie The Messenger. It's a very good movie. If you guys can watch it about drug related stuff, and it's incredible. I don't want to plug it in because it's a lot, but it's a movie related with drugs and stuff.
What film is it again?
The Messenger.
They're in the trenches.
Sorry?
It's called Kill the Messenger. Kill the Messenger.
Kill the Messenger. All right.
Yes.
New series.
Oh, I have seen that movie. Yes, that's the one about the CIA.
Like the White House getting drugs from like Nicaragua to like fund.
Right.
Like, because Nicaragua was a communist country and they needed money for this ideology, so they took like a bunch of weapons and they sold the drugs in like usually like LA and the crack addiction in LA at the time. It was incredible, very well done.
With Jeremy Renner, yes, I did see that. That was excellent.
Yes, it was.
And I can't remember the journalist that he played, but they vilified him.
Yeah, no, and it's funny because he died. And then they say he suicide, quote unquote suicide himself after he like published. Man,
a lot of people who run afoul of the CIA seem to be suicidal also.
And you know what?
Very interesting.
And you guys
the side effect of dealing with the CIA.
Yeah, exactly.
And you guys are gonna flip out because this was such a story. Like it was huge when they put it on the newspapers and whatever, and then people in LA was getting so upset, like y'all minorities. You know what killed that story? You know what was the biggest story that happened the day after everybody forgot about it? And she's involved in this election when the whole Monica Lewinsky and Bill Clinton thing happened.
Right.
Everybody throw that to the side, like out of the window.
Yeah.
And then here we are.
Yeah, Gary Webb was the guy. I couldn't think of his name. I just looked it up. He was the Jeremy Renner was portraying Gary Webb.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's a really good film. Thanks for bringing it up.
I can't say I've ever seen that movie. Sounds like a very interesting film that I got to look into.
And I feel like it says a lot about American politics and about politics in general.
Let's not isolate America here. So let's just remember one thing. As long as humans are involved, whatever it is, that's why the importance of regulation is paramount. Regulation and fairly uncorrupted government, right, on a certain level.
Yeah.
It's paramount to a decent society, overall. So you have humans, you're going to have a lot of crap out there. You're going to have a lot of nasty things going on because in our nature, this whole idea of free market and saying trickle down economics, all this garbage that doesn't work, never worked. And no one's ever going to create it because it's never existed. So as long as humans are involved, we're not able to self-regulate, no matter how righteous we think we are, or some people are more so, some not as much. But in the end of the day, we'll do, even the religious folk, if they ask the question whether sacrifice their, whatever, or, do a Christian thing and, follow in the steps of Christ, if that thing benefits them or their family, because nothing is as simple, they'll always do the thing that benefits them. So
not always though. You have to also remember like the amount of many different religious groups that have been martyring histories.
We need to let our host talk.
That have histories of martyrdom. Like for Christianity, for example, since that's what you were talking about, there's a whole movement of change. Because, like, one of the reasons why it became so popular was because of the people willing to sacrifice and be martyred and be killed during the time of the Romans in order for that to grow. So many religions, actually, they won't choose that. I don't completely agree with what you're saying, because many people have died. Even cults have the big cult where everyone took the medicine and they were in California, everyone got in their bunk beds in the 60s.
Sure, but
when was that?
At the end of the day, usually most.
But at the end of the day, a lot of people will choose what they strongly believe in.
I don't know if I agree with you because historically speaking, I think
there's a case for both. That's what I'm saying. I don't think I don't think you can say in general really for either, because I feel like there are a lot of stories and a lot of history for both.
I can't think of it. I mean, if you think of any church. Any large church, any church with any power, there usually is like a really strong hierarchy.
Mm-hmm.
It's like a government. It's like a corporation. We don't need to talk about Vatican. Anything you can imagine. Any large church that's important, that's prominent.
Mm-hmm.
There's a whole lot of of course. What they do. Those who speak well, because usually what is the reference to many of the like Islamists, it's usually a doctor or someone, a really well-spoken person that takes the same words that have been regurgitated, over thousands of years and presents them a little bit differently to someone that's, not so clever. So next thing you know, basically, in the end of the day, yes, some people do it for the love of God or whatever, for love of religion or whatever they stand for. But in the bigger point, I mean, in any developed country, where you know your rights and you realize that religion is just a bunch of crap, you make a choice for your own good every single time.
A lot of cases that's true. I feel like that's really unfortunate. I actually did a whole
the advice you gave Donald Trump.
What is it called? I don't even know the word for it. A whole study basically that I had to present in one of my classes in my university about how people's immediate reaction toward even just helping somebody else on the street, the immediate reaction when given time to think about it, people's immediate reaction actually is to help. That's what
it has nothing to do with religion. It has nothing to do with religion. It's
that's
as
true.
human beings, we're compassionate.
Yeah. That's what I'm saying.
You don't tell me that we're kind and compassionate and helpful because of religion.
I'm not saying that. I disagree. I don't think that's why we are. I think that's a natural thing. That's what I'm saying. I think people don't naturally tend to their selfish acts unless they have time to think about what will benefit them. But if they don't have time to think about if it will or won't benefit them, our immediate reaction of NYU, Harvard, and Yale all did a study together proving, I mean, it's hard to prove emotions. That our immediate reaction isn't actually selfish.
Okay, so let me ask you a question. Mega churches, pastors with 5 houses, Bentleys, G6s. Well, what do you call that? I mean, they're doing it for God wants me to be prosperous. What?
I think that they don't know how to read their own scriptures. I think it's the same. I think it's the same with people who are I feel like I grew up in a majority Muslim country. I grew up in Southeast Asia and Indonesia, and there were many leaders of temples there that was the same situation. They ended up getting enough attention that they stopped actually caring about what they should have believed, what they said that they believed.
Yes, you're getting somewhere. You're very young and you're full of positive thinking. That's good. We need people.
So what you're saying is probably true of the preachers and stuff, but I think your man Bernie, on whom you have a T-shirt, I think he's made a nice living for himself. He prospered as the mayor of Burlington and as a senator, and yet he proclaims to have all kinds of compassion and cries crocodile tears for the underclass and stuff like that. So, I mean, is that evidence that he's hypocritical as well, or what do you think about that?
His most recent quote about religion his religion has nothing to do with, in his opinion, religion is not organized. It's not churches. Basically, I'm not saying verbatim, but basically his idea is love for each other. That's religion. So
he likes disorganized religion.
Well, actually,
I wouldn't say that's disorganized religion, though.
But religion is organization. What he's kind of separating religion from a way of life. I think Bernie's
we were talking about
on it has been it's more of a path he chooses to live by rather than I pray 3,000 times a day and I only
he was the one who was elected.
I eat lasagna every Thursday.
That's what he said. And then
I think human beings are quite.
But I was kind of talking about your income level and
here you take.
I see.
If you're insincere because you make more money than somebody else,
they're saying, I don't want to like to do it.
But Jeff, Bernie Sanders has history, decades of quote-unquote standing up for the little guy. Who else on this stage today, or even Hillary or O'Malley, who's done, obviously put a fork in him, but, he's just probably the best politician out there on either side.
It's very true, and I support you 100% on that statement, too, because Bernie Sanders, he touches on all the points that all these politicians want to touch on, but they're not extremely passionate about it. And if you listen to some of his campaigns and just some of his statements that he makes, he's a very honest man. And he said that he would, quote, love to beat Donald Trump in this campaign for president.
He
said he can't wait to be just the two of them in the end because he knows he's going to beat him easy.
Yeah, because with Bernie Sanders, the thing is, he is so passionate about what he believes in that everyone just tends to like him more. And because, like you said, he stands up for the little guy who doesn't have a voice in it. And
he's done it.
Good.
He has the record to show it.
And he's yours too, right?
Yeah, precisely.
It's not a guy that just came up the street and said, well, today I believe that, and today I'm pro this, and tomorrow I'm pro that. I mean, this dude's been, whatever movement you can think of, you can probably find him in there somewhere. Like hanging and going against, voicing his opinion against, standing up to the big banks before the collapse, standing up, to the government against the war in Iraq. This is the dude that he's not perfect. We're all human. But out of everyone out there right now, and considering where we are right now, there's really no other option. We can't have another career politician in there. And of course, Jeff, you're going to say he is a career politician because he's been in office. But I'm talking about a regular business as usual type of politician.
No, I think no, I wouldn't say that. I mean, I was very fond of Ron Paul, and I think he had a unparalleled degree of integrity.
One of my people, because I think okay, so, okay, I got your back, Melissa. I actually,
I'm sorry, guys.
Now, where I maybe hope it's Ted Cruz or Donald Trump because
are you a socialist?
Bloodbath, and I want to see everyone put your money where your mouth is. Far right,
guys.
Exactly what you want, and you're going to see if this experiment works. And
I have a question for Aaron. Are you a socialist?
Their bubbles.
If you ask me, well, if you go a little deeper, ask what does socialism mean to you? What does a socialist mean to you?
Well, socialist is a branch of communism.
Okay,
it's kind of a collective ownership of the means of production of property. Right. No private property.
Right. That's troublesome.
Oh, how is it troublesome?
Well, think about if you have your own private property, you'll be taken away, because there's an idea on socialism that if you are a doctor and somebody who sweeps the street and works at McDonald's, you should get paid the same.
No,
I don't think he's totally agree with that at all.
You're thinking communism. And here's, Pedro, let me ask you something.
Right, go ahead.
Okay. Are you for universal health care?
Yes.
Okay, I have just two more questions for you. Are you pro, Medicaid, Medicare, basically supporting of the old people, after, when they're ready to retire?
Is it only old people or just everybody in general? Or anybody?
No, just everybody. So you pro, basically, you pro Medicare, Medicare for all, right?
Or
universal health care.
Do that approve a medical assistance at all?
No, I'm talking, are you pro, basically the style of universal health care, where basically you go to a doctor, sometimes you have to wait in line, but it's not going to cause you to basically go bankrupt.
Somebody else pays for it.
Okay. If it's not to go bankrupt, then yes, I'm willing to hear some more for sure.
Perfect. Are you pro regulating the Wall Street to avoid another collapse, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera?
That is
government regulation? No.
I wouldn't mind that to happen once again. Yeah.
There you go. You know what? Are you pro working 8 hours a week? Are you against child labor?
Yes, I'm against child labor.
Are you pro fixing the roads and bridges?
Is this going somewhere?
Yeah, this is going somewhere right now. That's
for sure.
Democratic socialism. That's socialism right there.
Because if you're for fixing bridges, you're a socialist. I want bridges fixed, but I want private firms to do them. I'm not a socialist.
Can you imagine, Jeff? Let me ask you something. Can you imagine the bill Franklin Delano Roosevelt would have had to put up if he had to pay some private dude to fix our roads and bridges and build dams?
Roads actually began as private. If you go around the D.C. area, for example, or anywhere, you'll see roads called the Little River Turnpike or Rockville Pike. They were all private roads until the government took them over. Private firms were building and maintaining those roads just fine until the government decided they wanted to be part of that monopoly, and they overtook them.
Why did they maintain those roads?
Is in a poll.
That's such an America.
Because people wanted to use those roads, and they and it was profitable for them to do that.
No, I'll tell you why.
Jeff, so you'd rather have a private person tell you to go this mile, you pay $10 or else go through the marshes or whatever. That's your preference. Let everybody do whatever they want. Free market. You want to pay me $5 to clean your house for 5 hours? No problem, because there are no other jobs and there's no one to make sure I get paid adequately.
Yes, if there's no other job and that's all you can make, yes, I want you to be free to work for $5. I don't want anybody to tell you can't do that. That would be an awful situation. I think people would be more prosperous in a free market, a truly free market system than they are now. So I don't see that as a scenario. But given what you've said, yes, that person should be allowed to work for 5 hours, and the person should be allowed to pay him if that's what he.
This is what's happening right now. There are 20 people in this country that hold as much wealth as 150 million people. Over the last 30 years, over the last 40 years, wealth has been trickling up and up and up and up to a point when, once again, with current minimum wage, there's not a single person in this country in any state that can afford a proper, living conditions. So where are we? This is what's been happening. We privatized prisons. Now you have these judges in Pennsylvania going to prison for basically putting kids for nothing into detention centers for profit. You have a private health care, which is basically
the prison system is not private. They have private franchisees or sweetheart deals given to private firms, but no, the prison system is very socialized. They're
private prisons. They're private detention centers. That's a fact.
They're private contractors. It's privatized to the extent that it's a nominally private appointee, but there's no freedom of competition. There's no market. This is all
judges. Jeff,
it's a fascist system, is what it is.
Jeff, it's a fact. There are 2 judges in Pennsylvania. They're going to prison for getting kickbacks for putting kids into a detention center, private detention center.
That's your system. That's your statism. The state is running these prisons. They're just outsourcing their statism. Yes.
No, Jeff. Judges, private prison. These judges came in.
Government judges.
Yes. Yeah, but they had the state detention center shut down.
The government detention center.
But it's a corrupt judge.
A corrupt government judge. Yes. Correct. No further questions, Your Honor.
Okay, I'm speechless. To Pedro, you like all the things that I like that we should be getting as a right in a progressive society. So when you ask me what I'm a socialist, I'm a democratic socialist, if anything. But once again, it's a very slippery slope. It's very dangerous to get caught up in isms. Yeah, we just shouldn't do that. Definitely. It should be a combination, a hybrid of different systems. Because you know what? I don't remember who said this, but democracy is the worst. Something along the lines of democracy being the worst thing out of any system that's ever existed, or something like that. So democracy kind of sucks, but it's still better than
Hello. Can you guys hear us?
Because in America,
democracy is the worst system except for all the rest.
Yes,
I think it was Churchill.
Okay, we can hear us.
I think what's happening in America is obviously not a democracy. It's called a plutocracy, which is a country run by the wealthy people, which is in fact
yeah, the top 1%. That's true, and I completely agree with that as well. Because think about it, you have Google, you have all these companies, Facebook. These are huge corporations, and they have such manipulation over politics too. Because consider it. Every politician there is that you see during these debates, the GOP Republicans, they are being funded by lobbyists. And these lobbyists are major corporations that are paying these politicians to go up there and win the race. And then in that, they're going to tell these politicians to do certain things for these companies for the better of their own image. Not for the better of the politician or for the better of the people, but a lot of it has to do with what companies personally want, like their selfish needs.
But Facebook can't bomb anybody. Facebook or Google can't bomb anybody. They can't draft you. They can't.
But they have some kind of influence on those decisions.
Everybody can buy favors from the government, and they can buy the most favors because they have the most money.
And that's why they control the majority of the country, because they're the wealthiest 1%. You have Donald Trump being an extremely wealthy person. He really didn't have that much political background on him. He was just a rich millionaire, billionaire.
He's a corporate welfare recipient.
That's what I'm saying. Like, I don't understand why people.
Why there's a requirement.
This is not free market, or this is fascism or
Trump
corporatism.
isn't accepting any money from corporate America. Trump is corporate America. He's like skipping the middleman and just going to presidency. Like, he doesn't have to sponsor anyone because he wants to become president so he can make his own rules, like benefit his own people.
Yeah, because that's all of Donald Trump's own ideals. That's why a lot of his campaign has revolved around irrational and nonsensible things. And a lot of it was rude during a lot of his campaigns. He would call out people wearing turbans
to give
in
himself
the
more
crowd.
attention, of course.
That's the reason why he's not debating today. It's because he has to answer really hard questions, and you can't really answer questions.
And he doesn't have them because he's just there for himself.
He's horrible. Yeah, I agree. He's horrible. But the current foreign policy and the current domestic policy is horrible and irrational too. It's just dressed up to look more respectable, but we're invading countries left and right for no reason, no good reason, or getting involved in internal affairs and devaluing our money and causing economic collapse. So it's just another brand of insanity. It's not anything particularly unique. What's mainstream is really more insane than anything else.
It's just annoying, like how people just say, like how Trump made millions and billions, like he would know how to take America out of poverty. But I'm just like, he made that money manipulating the system and going like filing for corporate welfare and doing all these things so that he doesn't have to succumb to like the penalties that regular America has to go through when they default on their loans and default on all this type of stuff. People are not like researching Trump; they just like the atmosphere and the vibe that people get off of him. Like it's
that's because all the other voices are saying
it's like a Kardashian. Like people can't help but talk about the Kardashians. People can't help but analyze Trump because he's got to that level of like
he has that confidence and he has this fame that's like it's difficult not to talk about him. He's been on reality shows, he's been a part of our media, and
he comes from that. People don't understand that. Like he's a reality star. Like he knows how to push the media. He knows how to Kim Kardashian the media for people to talk about.
And that's what he's doing, and that's
Kevin, don't soil our discussion with the Kardashians, please.
To me,
I think the Kardashian is a great example, though. I think it's
to me, Trump is not. I mean, I'm not a Trump acolyte by any means. I
love that.
I think he's horrible.
He is horrible.
But the thing that I think appeals to people is because normally we're only supposed to talk about stuff within this very narrow range is really all we're supposed to talk about.
And he's blunt and honest.
Maybe gay marriage, some kind of, but nothing that threatens like any cherished institutions like the military-industrial congressional complex, as Eisenhower called it. None of those things are up for, or whether we're supposed to be a military presence. None of that stuff's really hotly debated. It's all these peripheral issues, and what Trump stirs up is even though I think he's crazy on some of those outside issues, he talks about things that are outside of that allowable range of conversation, and that's what I think. That's what stirs up the buzz, and to the extent that he does that, I think that's great. Even though I think he personally is deplorable.
Well, a big comparison with Donald Trump is also people will say he's a lot like Sarah Palin, and Sarah Palin is a lot like Donald Trump, and that they really never even went from politics to try to run for candidacy. Like Sarah Palin is more of an attention grabber, and she always does that, and that's why people compare the two of them, because Donald Trump, through all of his famous vines or quotes saying "you're fired" to his employees and everything, people just like him because they know him as that guy who points at people and says "you're fired" you're ignorant. You're ignorant to the facts.
Let's listen to what people's opinions are when it comes to voting. Most people haven't watched the debates. Most people don't really know what's going on, barely know who's voting, and a lot of people vote for the person that they've heard about more. And right now, Trump is appealing to those people, even though those people don't like him, because he's the person everyone's heard about. So I think Trump's I think he's up in percentages because the people who don't care and are ignorant
because it's very important,
are hearing about him.
as we all
And they're
pointed
not
out,
hearing anything
that
about
there isn't
a lot of
another
other
debate
people
before the
because
Iowa vote on Monday.
he's been in reality and he's been a part of the world for generations in a bunch of different.
But let me throw this at you, right? You got to remember.
He's in the media. He's good at being in the media. If he's good or not.
You have about 8 to 10 candidates, right?
And we have Wallace, Chris Wallace. They're in Iowa.
He's a leader, right?
Yeah, right.
But that means
I don't know if I'd say
hypothetically
that.
speaking, he's got maybe 10%. So he supports like 10% of the GOP, which is probably, let's say, hypothetically speaking, 5% of the whole country. It's the fringe. It's the anti-government, right-wing, not terrorists per se, but some of them are. I mean, these are the guys,
Because we're definitely looking out for you.
We consider this buffoon to be a president. So once they go down to 3 guys, let's say, it's him, Rubio, and Cruz, he's done in the numbers, in the polls. It's just a matter of time. So he's not even, there's nothing to even talk about, to be honest with you. The good thing, what I have to agree with Jeff with, is that he pushed those boundaries. At first, I thought it was kind of, with his type of rhetoric, it's kind of dangerous. But now you can actually see people coming out and showing their true colors. The racists, the isolationists, whoever you want to think of, these are the people that are coming out and they're honest and they're sharing their opinion. And now we know who those people are. So in a way, he did some good. He's going to sell a hell of a show next year. But as a presidential candidate, stick a fork in him.
Okay. Yeah. On that note, I've got to head out. It was great talking to everybody.
Bye, Jeff.
Thanks for all the tomatoes and everything else.
No, I'll send you a hype like this. Miss you already.
Talk to you later. It was great talking to you. I'll see you around here again.
Let's hope.
Bye, Jeff.
Bye, Jeff. And guys, on that note, the debate is now beginning for all those who are in waiting. So I'm going to post a link of it up on
as voters across America seek to learn more about what's happening on the live debate stage.
7 candidates are on that
Okay.
stage tonight.
Take a
Their
look.
position on the stage determined by their standing in the latest national polls, as well as polls in Iowa and New Hampshire. Here they are. Texas Senator Ted Cruz. Florida Senator Marco Rubio.
Neurosurgeon Dr. Ben Carson. Former Florida Governor Jeb Bush. New Jersey Governor Chris Christie.
Ohio Governor John Kasich. And Kentucky Senator Rand Paul.
Oh.
Apparently Iowa's near Kentucky. Tonight's rules are simple. Up to 60 seconds for each answer, 30 seconds for each
There's Megyn
follow-up
Kelly.
response. And if a candidate goes over the allotted time, you will hear this. Oh, double.
Wow.
I think the double is the one we want. We have a crowd of about 1,600 here, and while they have agreed to respect the candidates and listen intently, we can tell you they are very excited to be here. Am I right?
So let's get started. Senator Cruz, before we get to the issues, let's address the elephant not in the room tonight. Donald Trump has chosen not to attend this evening's presidential debate. What message do you think that sends to the voters of Iowa?
Megan, let me say at the outset to the men and women of Iowa, thank you for the incredible hospitality over this past year.
Of course.
By Monday, you will have welcomed me into all 99 counties in Iowa. You will have welcomed my dad to preach at your churches.
Starting off being respectful.
Welcomed Heidi and our girls, Caroline and Catherine, into your homes. And I am so grateful for the diligence, for the seriousness with which the men and women of Iowa approach this process. If I am elected president, keep an eye on the tarmac, because I'll be back. Because Iowa in 2017 will not be flyover country. It will be fly to country. Now, secondly, let me say, I'm a maniac, and everyone on this stage is stupid, fat, and ugly. And Ben, you're a terrible surgeon. Now that we've gotten the Donald Trump portion out of the way. I want to thank everyone here for showing the men and women of Iowa the respect to show up and make the case to the people of this state and the people of the country why each of us believe we would make the best commander-in-chief.
The divide between you and Mr. Trump has turned into one of the biggest stories in the country.
I like your meme
And for
bitch
6 months,
hairstyle.
your campaign, during this campaign, you praised Mr. Trump as somebody who you thought was an effective voice against the Washington cartel. You said you were glad that he was running as a Republican. But when he started to criticize you, your message changed. And you suddenly started to portray him as the voice of the Washington cartel and suggested he would do the Democrats' bidding. Which is it?
Well, let me be clear. If Donald engages in insults or anybody else, I don't intend to reciprocate. I have not insulted Donald personally, and I don't intend to. I am glad Donald is running. I'm glad he has produced enormous enthusiasm. And to every Donald Trump voter or potential voter, I hope to earn your support. I know everyone else on this stage hopes to earn your support. Now, there is a difference between personal insults and attacks, between going into
Mark, why aren't you sharing, man?
with ad hominems and
You need to be
focusing
sharing.
on issues and substance. I think issues and substance, policy and vision and record should be the meat of politics. That's fair game, but that's where I'm going to focus. That is how I focused from the beginning of the campaign, and it's how I intend to continue going forward.
Senator Rubio, I want to explore this sort of larger issue. The campaign has, in a sense, turned into a battle for the soul of the Republican Party, establishment versus grassroots, pragmatic versus principle. You say that you can unite all of the factions inside the GOP. How?
Chris, let's begin by being clear what this campaign is about. It's not about Donald Trump. He's an entertaining guy. He's the greatest show on earth. This campaign is about the greatest country in the world and a president who has systematically destroyed many of the things that made America special. You see, we usually elect presidents in America that want to change the things that are wrong in America. Barack Obama wants to change America. Barack Obama wants America to be more like the rest of the world. We don't want to be like the rest of the world. We want to be the United States of America. And that is why Hillary Clinton cannot win this election. Hillary Clinton this week said Barack Obama would make a great Supreme Court justice. The guy who systematically and habitually violates the Constitution on the Supreme Court? I don't think so. If I'm our nominee, I will unite this party, and we will defeat Hillary Clinton, and we will turn this country around once and for all after 7 years of the disaster that is Barack Obama.
Thank you.
Governor Bush, it's hard for anyone with your pedigree to avoid being called establishment. But isn't that part of the problem in this race, that three others on this stage are splitting the mainstream Republican vote and thereby possibly handing this nomination over to an anti-establishment candidate?
Brett, we're just starting. The first vote hasn't been counted. Why don't we let the process work? I trust Iowans, granted staters, South Carolina, people in the to start this process out. I kind of miss Donald Trump. He was a little teddy bear to me. We always had such a loving relationship during these debates and in between and the tweets. I kind of miss him. I wish he was here. Everybody else was in the witness protection program when I went after him on behalf of what the Republican cause should be. Conservative principles, believing in limited government, believing in accountability, leading by fixing the things that are broken. Look, I'm an establishment because my dad, the greatest man alive, was president of the United States. My brother, who I adore as well, is a fantastic brother.
Greatest man alive.
I'll take it. And I guess I'm part of the establishment because Barbara Bush is my mom. I'll take that too.
Wow.
This election.
Ben Carson's my hometown in Baltimore, or I mean, he worked there at Hopkins.
And we need a leader that will fix
any
it, have a
office.
proven record to
Not
do it.
Baltimore,
And we need
anyway.
someone who will take on Hillary Clinton in November, someone who has a proven record, who's been tested, who's totally transparent.
I wonder why they never mentioned Bernie. It's always like Hillary.
300,000 emails in my government
They
record
don't
to
think-
get information from Hillary Clinton. You need to get a subpoena from the FBI.
Thank you, Governor.
Because they're running against Washington, and Hillary
You began
represents
this campaign touting your
inside
record as
insider
a
Washington.
Republican from a blue state who knows how to get things done and reach across the aisle. However, many Republicans feel that reaching across the aisle and getting things done isn't great if you get the wrong things done. And they prefer to stand on principle rather than compromise.
Having fun vaping at their images.
And you're right.
Why aren't you passing that along, Mark? You're being really selfish right now.
Your premise in the question. You can do both. There is no reason why you can't stand for principles, go and fight for them, and be able also to have to get things done in government. You know, what people are frustrated about in Washington, D.C., and I know the folks out there tonight are incredibly frustrated because what they see is a government that doesn't work for them. You know, for the 45-year-old construction worker out there who's having a hard time making ends meet, who's lost $4,000 in the last 7 years in his income because of this administration, he doesn't want to hear the talk about politics, Megan, and who's establishment and who's grassroots and who's compromise and who's principle. What he wants is something to get done. And that's the difference between being a governor and having done that for the last 6 years in New Jersey and being someone who has never had to be responsible for any of those decisions. Barack Obama was never responsible for those decisions. Hillary Clinton has never been responsible for those kind of decisions where they were held accountable. I've been held accountable for 6 years as the governor of New Jersey. And with the Democratic legislature, I've gotten conservative things done. That is exactly what I'll do as president of the United States.
Senator Paul, you're definitely not in the establishment category. But at the beginning of this campaign, you said you were your own man when asked about your father, former Texas Congressman and three-time presidential candidate Ron Paul. Senator Cruz's campaign is out with a video saying that Cruz is the intellectual and political heir to your father's 2012 campaign and the Liberty Movement. And your father now says that it's realistic that Donald Trump will be your party's nominee. So did you make a mistake by not more fully embracing your father politically at the beginning of this campaign?
You know, I've always had a great deal of respect. There's probably no person I respect more in the country or in recent history than my father. I think he was probably the most honest man in politics that we've ever seen in a generation. And so in no way have I ever said that I don't embrace my father or love my father or appreciate everything that he's done for the country. I think what's interesting about where that liberty vote goes that my father brought to the Republican Party is I don't think they're necessarily going to go for Ted. You know, Ted didn't show up. We had an audit the Fed vote, which was the biggest thing my dad had been advocating for 30 years. Ted didn't have time to show up. He was the only Republican that didn't show up for it. And so I think that really that vote is going to stay in the Paul household. I think more of it's coming and it's going to grow. The NSA is another big issue. Ted said he was for NSA reform. But then he told Marco Rubio, oh, no, I voted for the bill because I'm for the government collecting 100% of your cell phone records. I think Ted can have it both ways. They want to say they're getting some of the Liberty vote, but we don't see it happening at all. We think we're going to do very well in Iowa with the Liberty vote.
Senator Cruz, your response to that?
Well, I agree with Rand that I very much respect Ron Paul, and that I think anyone who's got to be able to win in the Republican Party has to be able to bring together the disparate elements of the Reagan coalition. You've got to be able to bring together conservatives and evangelicals and libertarians and stitch together a winning majority. When it comes to the audit the Fed bill, as Rand knows well, I was an original sponsor of the bill. I am strongly supportive of it. It didn't have the votes to pass, and I had commitments to be at a town hall in New Hampshire. But I look forward to signing that bill into law as president and to auditing the Fed and providing needed accountability at the Federal Reserve.
But
Senator Rubio.
I think, Rand and I have some significant issues on policy, but I respect Rand. He believes everything he stands for.
Oh, it's a quick buffer going on there. But in the meantime, guys, what do you think about thus far in the GOP debate, what they were discussing?
Opening statements, usual.
I respect Randa, but I want to be frank about what I say.
Yeah, but like it's usual.
I'm frustrated always. I'm always frustrated with the Republican debates because they never talk about why they're interesting. Like, why should I give you my vote? It's always that. It's always like you hear like Rubio up there. He's like, Obama did this wrong. We don't want to be like him, and Hillary's going to do this wrong. It's like right now you're not even, for one, you're not going to run against Obama, and right now you're not running against the Democratic Party. You should be focused on the party beside you. And I don't understand, like, what is it about you that makes you better? I understand that you think everybody else is wrong. That's why you're there. So why should we vote for you?
Yeah, if you're just going to discuss about people being wrong and their positions being hypocritical and contradictory, why not just talk more about your own positions on policies? Be better. Exactly. Why waste the public's time? They know that you're running against each other. That's quite apparent. There's no need to put each other down. You do that in your own campaign, whether or not people agree with you or not. This is a fair fought battle.
Yeah, shows them I think it shows them smaller than they are. They want to be like, they want to be big, but I feel like it doesn't show that they're mature or grown up.
But think about the electorate. The electorate they pander to.
Yeah.
That's basically anytime I watched the first one in entirety, GOP debate, and after that I stopped simply because I wanted to throw something on my TV because I could not believe that type of disregard for, like, it's insulting to anyone's intelligence. Most of the things that they say. I mean, I can't believe Mike Huckabee today was so far had some actually had anything to say actually about our social issues, how to address them. This is the first time I hear it. Even so, you know, they pander to racists. They pander to the folk that you know, that take our jobs. You know, I mean, just that type of voter, and that's why they would rather discuss. You know, that's why I'm a little disappointed with Kevin. You know, he's worried about the, you know, these folks being either sexy or you know, or not boring. You know, instead of
come on, EJ. You know I was kidding. Like, stop
instead of concentrating on the issues at hand.
You're milking this. You're loving the star picture right now.
And you were the only one so far to bring up Kardashian, so I'm gonna throw it in your face too.
Like, we can't, like, this is the thing, like, I feel like Americans, we don't call a spade. Like, the Kardashians, they're a big deal. Like, obviously, like, they make a huge part of the pop culture. They literally, like, shape the youth that's coming up right now. They're the ones who watch them and stuff. So
oh my God.
That's a fair assessment.
Yeah, that's true. Even if you want that or not, that's how it is.
Whether it's bad or not, like, she has a huge fan following base just like Trump has. So correlating the two does make perfect sense because they both have extreme fans on both ends. Like,
that's very true.
The saddest thing I heard today, and I had a really bad day at work. That is sad.
I mean, welcome to the real world. You're going to be hearing a lot of sad things in your life, but you just have to buckle up, put your man panties on, and grow up. Okay?
He's so mean.
Attack.
It's all love, though. It's all love.
We have the GOP debate going on right here on DINtv, guys, on all our platforms. Tune in.
So, Kevin, you were listening to me either. You were listening to it with me last time, the Republicans. What do you think that they are doing any better this time with Trump not there, or do you think they're kind of the same? It's just maybe a little more quiet, and they're all not even about themselves.
When I watch these debates, it kind of like makes me close my perception on what I see the world as it is, because politicians and politics and the election is just a rooster. Like it's not. It's like a show. It's not like making any significant change or anything like that, because there's so much bigger things that are happening outside of the U.S. elections. Talking about like the UN meetings that are happening between the different continents in the world, the countries in the world. You have the whole exporting chips that are not going across the Atlantic border, and people aren't talking about that, and that's a huge thing when it comes to us importing and exporting items. People aren't talking about that. People aren't talking about the huge dilemma that we have on Earth, which is overpopulation and the different antics that's happening around that. People aren't talking about Flint as much. It's just more of a charity celebrity type of thing. It's not, people aren't really like hammering down on the issues of that. There's so much bigger things, and the election is just a way to take people's minds off of the reality and make them feel like they're making an actual change, when in real life they actually aren't doing anything.
Yeah, but Kevin, you got to also take into consideration.
It's like a football, like a team, like team this, team that. It's like the Super Bowl and presidential, like the big Super Bowl.
But listen, Kevin, the issues that you're talking about with overpopulation and all these ideals that people do address in China and everything, it can be taken in a very extremist, radical way. And the fact that you have to mediate overpopulation, just these are a lot of big issues that people aren't ready to face yet.
I don't think that there is overpopulation. There's so much land that we could be moving people to that's just empty. What do you mean by overpopulation?
The desert? Where are you gonna move them?
It's more like resources. We have too much people, and we don't have enough resources to feed them. So that's what the overpopulation issue is. It's not more or less like land.
Yeah.
But it doesn't make any sense. You have all this land, you have people in it, but then there's no food to feed them. They're gonna die, you know. So that's what the issue is, and how Andres was saying about like how China's on that. It's a hard truth to swallow, but I mean, you have the government's handling it in different ways of how to control this.
And actually, they just opened up another child. You can now have a third child.
Like for me, I can go into the whole conspiracy thing of like how like they're controlling the population in a way, but that's just another. That's going down the rabbit hole.
That's not tonight. Controlling it well enough. If there's a conspiracy, if there's a conspiracy, they're not controlling it well enough. So let's not get like there are some conspiracies out there that are probably valid, but as far as overpopulation, we got a problem. And, I agree with you on that.
The best lies have a little truth in them. The best lies always have a little bit of truth in them. If you give them enough, they'll form it themselves.
That's true, but this is an issue that has to be taken care of over time, because something like overpopulation and just not having enough resources, it's not as easy to deal with as just like talking about it. It's a lot of people on this planet, and it's
as I said, it's a hard truth to swallow. Look at China; they have to put a pause. It's a touchy topic, you know. It's a really touchy topic.
Yeah, it seems like Pedro wants to say something though, Kevin.
No, I think like even you might not even think about it this way, but the U.S. presidency, that's the biggest piece of news there is for here until the elections, man. You guys don't realize how important that is, because you say you have a population problem, but this president, like it or not, will have a lot of emphasis on what the fuck are we gonna do.
The U.S. president's like the most famous person in the world. Everybody
like
knows
it or
who the
not,
US president is. And even like growing up in Indonesia, people knew who Justin Bieber were, and they knew who Obama were. Like it's all villages. They don't have TV. They don't have cell phones. They know who Obama is, though.
And not just
social media people.
Not just your generation, but your generation previous. They know who the president and the previous, and that's how it's going to be from the dawn of man. So that should be taken into account.
Yeah, and with that, we should definitely figure out what they're talking about right now in the debate. So we're going to switch over to that, all right?
Too has Barack Obama. Just as morale in the military has plummeted in the last 7 years, so it had then. What Reagan did is he began with tax reform and regulatory reform, unleashing the engine of the American free enterprise system. It brought booming economic growth, and that growth fueled rebuilding the military. I intend to do the exact same thing to defeat radical Islamic terrorism and to devote the resources from the booming economy to rebuilding our Navy, rebuilding our Air Force, rebuilding our Army, and ensuring we have the capacity to keep this country safe.
Mike, my budget was mentioned.
May I just say that we are going to continue the questions about foreign terror, gentlemen, right after this break.
But first, you can join tonight's conversation right from home. Go to google.com or open your Google search app and search Fox News Debate to vote on which candidate you think has the best plan to defeat ISIS.
This is the
we'll be right back.
most important thing of tonight, the commercial. This is critical, okay? This is must happen.
Yo, I can drop some real knowledge on you guys right now that will blow your minds about the U.S. government and the corruption that happens on a global scale. Do you understand?
Then tell us, by all means.
I'm on the edge of my seat.
I don't think Aaron can handle this. I think it's too much for him. His mind just might go like...
Aaron, you ready to get your mind blown right now? It sounds like Kevin's about to spit some real facts.
I can't wait.
Kevin, you have the floor.
Just between the commercial time, we're good.
You haven't, as long as the commercial is, Kevin. So ready?
30 seconds. Go. Oh, no, go.
I forgot what I was going to say.
Actually, I feel like
Aaron, you won this round.
I feel like that is the biggest news in America at times. Like,
did you notice? Opening statement, blah, blah, blah. Where do we go after that? Foreign policy, ISIS. We're building the largest military in the world with the biggest budget, the most wasteful military in the world. Let's rebuild it. Oh, I wonder where the morale of the military went. It's called PTSD, son. So this guy's insane.
Yeah, but it's also because, like, why are we spending so much money, exerting so much of our funds on the military efforts when we can be focusing on issues in the United States, like healthcare or just finances in general? Yeah, why are we so occupied and concerned about the well-being of other countries in terms of their war efforts when we have to fight a war on our own poverty
But
here
you
in the
have to
United
remember,
States?
just the fact that we're America, just that fact means that we're involved.
Because America's
Like,
a shit, that's why.
Because it is. It's shit. Since the World Wars, like, for real, that's true. Like I was saying earlier, in the villages, people know who Obama is. Like, we are in
Obama.
We
know
own
who
land
Obama.
in so many countries. Like in Indonesia, you have an embassy. In Mexico, you have an embassy. America is around the world.
Everybody wants to go to America.
Everyone wants to go to America.
Land of the
America's the
free.
shit. America is involved in every country, if we like it or not. That's the reality.
And plus, we have people that come from other countries that come to America, so they have roots in those countries. So anything that happens in their country, they feel it as well because they're here. So whatever means they can do to help that country, that's how they feel. So
for sure,
I just think when it comes to ISIS or anything like that, it should be a global effort and not just America's effort. If you get what I'm saying. Yeah. America tries to police everyone, they can't even police their own country.
Yeah, exactly. Because we don't have enough help.
Even Americans,
it took them 3 weeks to admit they had a terrorist attack. Like, they can't even call it what it is. Like, we are the biggest hypocrites when it comes to like not saying what things are.
That's true.
We tend to want to fix the problem without even addressing it, and what we need to do is fix the problem.
We want to we don't want to make it a big deal. We want to like kind of brush it to the side until it gets fixed, and then we're like,
kind of like the Native Americans. Kind of like the Native Americans and the slaves, you know. Oh my gosh, you guys, it happened 200 years ago. Get over it, you know. Like we didn't do it to you, like people in the past did. But you know, like these things, like we never just really say it, you know.
Oh, hell no. No.
Oh,
Kevin, I wouldn't vote for you as president. I'm
As
sorry.
an independent.
Yeah. All right.
Aaron is the Trump of the campaign.
He went there. Aaron. He's going for blood right now.
No.
You can be vice president. Just something happens to
I think that would be a really messy, a really messy few years.
No, I don't even want to be president. I want to be head of the NSA or the CIA. That's where the real power is. You think the president has power? You need to go to the CIA and all these black ops companies.
The president is just
who the government goes to for them to help. The government goes to these guys. They're not ruled by the government. If anything, they ask the government. The government asks them when they want shit or when they need to know shit.
Sure, but
the president's a puppet. It has to be controlled by everything else, which is a good thing because we don't want.
You don't want a king.
We don't want a king. Yeah, that's what we're doing. So it makes sense, but at the same time, like we do put a huge deal on the president, but we don't put it as huge of a deal as everyone else involved. Like we don't pay attention to the smaller elections because we're like, oh, whatever, we just pay attention to the presidential elections. But we don't realize that the presidential elections are not as big of a deal as those other elections are, because in the long run, those are the people making the votes. And if they don't have the president's back, the president's not getting much done.
No, you're absolutely right. The fact that there are more people going shopping on Black Friday for TV number 3 or 4 that they don't need, instead of voting, not even in the regular presidential election, but in midterm elections. That's what you were referring to, where we actually shape what our government looks like.
Yeah. The word.
I mean, that right there. There you go, right there. We don't care. We care about the Kardashians. We care about other crap. We care about ISIS.
The Walking Dead.
Formed away.
It's unfortunate. Like that is what it is. It's hard. It's hard to change that, and I think that's awful. I think it's awful that the Kardashians. So many people know who the Kardashians is. I think it's awful that when I go into the villages in Indonesia, people go like, "Oh, I know Obama and I know Justin Bieber." I'm like, "Now, why do you know Justin Bieber?"
These are people just how Obama's a person, Kim Kardashian's a person. She can't help who likes her and who wants to like know everything about her life.
Well, I feel like it's understandable that they will know Obama and Bieber. I mean, Obama's a president and Bieber is a famous singer, you know, across the world. So they're not totally off, those people in Indonesia.
Yeah, I mean, they know. It's not like they know just anybody. Like, I don't walk into a country and everybody's like, "Hey, Victoria, I know exactly who you are." Like, you have to be involved somehow.
There's nothing wrong. There's nothing wrong with popular culture, right? That's how we grow as a society, you know, as a culture. I mean, we need those things, right?
That's how we go around the world. Like, Oppa Gangnam Style brought in K-pop to the U.S. Like, as a big mainstream thing. It wasn't just a few weird people listen to Korean music. It became like a big deal.
But
media connects the world.
Yeah, and also on top of that, but it's also bad publicity. But there's no such thing as bad publicity. All publicity is publicity, and it gets the word out there.
Bad publicity
No. But hear me out.
There are people that think because one of the biggest industries in the United States is the porn industry. So there are other countries that say what does America do? It has a president that doesn't do anything, and
no, but we're talking about the individuals itself. Guys, keep this in mind. Kim Kardashian was involved in a sex tape a couple of years back
for president.
And through the sex tape, she gained extremely large fan base, so many followers that actually liked her because of that. So it wasn't as though it was bad publicity. It was as though that people just saw her as being that. And also, on top of that, she was a Kardashian. So she had that social media status, and it was
won't follow her because of that's how her roots began. Like people hear that's how her roots began, and they won't follow her. Like I think there is bad publicity. It's still publicity, and you get people. But there is a good and bad. Both are publicity. You can't I feel like you're taking the word publicity out. Publicity means people are recognizing you. There can be good or bad though. There can be people will recognize you if it's bad or good.
Yeah, so
but
with
they're
that,
recognizing you no matter what.
So with that idea of publicity and bad publicity and recognizing it, we're going to switch over to the DIN Live Kardashian for the campaign, the GOP race right now.
And I would suggest let's stay focused on those issues rather than just attacks directed at each other.
I think the questions were about issues, but Senator Rubio,
I was mentioned.
what would you like to say?
Yes, sir. Well, by Senator
First of
Cruz,
all,
I'd like to respond.
Do I go? Let me go first, and then you can please recognize Rand after. But first of all,
thank you.
First of all, don't worry, I'm not leaving the stage no matter what you ask me.
Good.
And second of all, and I think Governor Jeb, the attack the authorization that Barack Obama asked for was not against ISIS; it was against Assad. And John Kerry described it as attacks that would be unbelievably small. I don't think the United States should be engaged in symbolic military activity. So it was not against ISIS, it was against Assad. I think the United States military is already operating under rules of engagement that are too strict and that do not allow us to pursue victory. When I'm president, that will change.
Chris,
Senator Paul, go ahead.
Thank you. The issue in Syria is a very important one, and it's one we need to get right. The question is, should we be bombing both sides of the war? Some want to topple Assad. In fact, they want to bomb ISIS and Assad simultaneously. I think that's a really, really bad idea. In fact, I've said for several years that arming the allies of ISIS will make the situation worse. That what we really need to do is defeat ISIS. But if you defeat Assad, what you will wind up with is a larger and more powerful ISIS that occupies that space. You may well see an ISIS that takes over all of Syria.
Chris. There was a question about foreign policy, by the way, and experience, and I thought if I didn't jump in, I might not be able to tell everybody this. I think they'd want to hear it. Look, I served on.
We'll be talking about foreign policy a little bit later. We're going to.
We have a lot to cover, but we want to turn the page to domestic terror.
But wait a minute. The only reason is
we want to turn the page to domestic terror, and let me tell you why. We're partnering with Google on this debate, and they're telling us that their search results have gone through the roof on people.
Megan, go ahead.
You're a good man, Governor Kasich.
Yes.
The search results, the searches for terror issues, for safety issues in America have gone through the roof, increased over 400% since 2008. People are worried. They're worried about what's happening in the country and about a domestic terror attack, as all of you know. Now, in combating this threat, Senator Rubio, you've advocated closing down mosques. We'll get back to you. You have advocated closing down mosques, diners, any place where radicalization is occurring. You told me that. But the Supreme Court has made clear that hateful speech is generally protected by the First Amendment. In other words, radical Muslims have the right to be radical Muslims unless they turn to terror. Doesn't your position run afoul of the First Amendment?
Megan, that's the problem. Radical Muslims and radical Islam is not just hate talk, it's hate action. They blow people up. Look what they did in San Bernardino. Look at the attack they inspired in Philadelphia that the White House still refuses to link to terror, where a guy basically shot a police officer 3 times. He told the police, I did it because I was inspired by ISIS. And to this day, the White House still refuses to acknowledge that it had anything to do with terror. Look, the threat we face from ISIS is unprecedented. There has never been a jihadist group like this. They have affiliates in over a dozen countries now. They are the best funded radical jihadist group in the history of the world. And they have shown a sophisticated understanding of the laws of other countries on how to insert fighters into places. And they are actively plotting to attack us here at home and around the world. We must keep America safe from this threat. And yes, when I am president of the United States, if there is some place in this country where radical jihadists are planning to attack the United States, we will go after them wherever they are. And if we capture them alive, they are going to Guantanamo.
Senator Paul, do you agree with that? We're going to close down mosques. We're going to close down diners.
I think that's a huge mistake to be closing down mosques. But I would say that if you want to defend the country, it begins with border security. And this is where I've had my disagreement with Senator Rubio. When he brought forward the Gang of Eight bill to give citizenship to those who came here illegally, I put forward an amendment that says we should have more scrutiny on those who are coming as students, those who are coming as immigrants, those who are coming as refugees. Because we had 2 refugees come to my town in Bowling Green and try to attack us. Marco opposed this because they made a deal. He made a deal with Chuck Schumer that he would oppose any conservative amendments. And I think that's a mistake. And I just don't think Marco can have it both ways. You can't be in favor of defending us against Islam, radical Islam, if you're not for border security.
Might I respond? The first thing, I don't know of anyone who's not in favor of fully vetting people that are trying to come to this country other than perhaps Barack Obama and Hillary Clinton. I think we all support that. Rand's amendment was not the right way to do it. I do believe that people who are trying to come to the United States, this country has a right to know who they are and why they are coming. And that's why I've been very clear. When I am the president of the United States of America, we don't know who you are, and we don't know why you're trying to come to the United States, you are not going to get in. Because the radical threat that we now face from ISIS is extraordinary and unprecedented. And when I'm president, we are keeping ISIS out of America.
Governor Christie, let's talk about profiling. In December,
Talk about what?
Profiling. In December, 2 radical Muslims killed 14 people in San Bernardino, California. Neighbors of the terrorists said that they did not report the couple to law enforcement prior to the crime because they were afraid that they would be accused of profiling. Now, you have said that we should not profile. How do you square that with the San Bernardino case?
Well, because you can do it without profiling, Megan. You can do it on the facts. What those folks knew was that these folks had weapons. They knew that they were talking about trying to take our country and attack it. That's not profiling. That's law enforcement. And that's the difference between somebody who knows how to do this and somebody who's never done it before.
They didn't know they were going to attack the country.
They knew they were talking about the issues of attacking people, Megan. They knew that.
That's not true. The neighbors said they saw men going in and out of the garage. They saw packages being delivered. They saw Muslims. And they did not think that was enough to call the cops. Do you?
Yeah, well, listen, I think that what people should do is use their common sense. And the fact is, let law enforcement make those decisions. I told people that from the time I was U.S. Attorney 13 years ago. It's not for them to make those decisions about whether or not something is legal or illegal or profiling or not. You see something that's suspicious, you call law enforcement and let law enforcement make those decisions. That's what should be done. That can be done. It can be done without profiling people. What that is just common sense. They thought something was wrong. And here's the problem in this country right now. The problem is that Barack Obama has made law enforcement the enemy. Hillary Clinton has made law enforcement the enemy. We're not supporting our law enforcement officers. It's making everybody nervous to get out of their cars. If you're a law enforcement officer, it's making people in neighborhoods nervous to go to law enforcement. As president, I will support law enforcement, and we will stop radical terrorist attacks in this country by supporting our intelligence community and our law enforcement community.
Dr. Carson. This week, a female Muslim who served in the U.S. Air Force asked Hillary Clinton the question. She asked whether the United States is still the best place in which to raise her 3 Muslim children, given what she perceives as a rise in Islamophobia in this country. Do you think that the GOP messaging on Muslims has stoked the flames of bias on this, as the Democrats suggest? And how would you answer this veteran?
Well, I don't know about the GOP messaging, but I can tell you about my messaging. You know, we need to stop allowing political correctness to dictate our policies, because it's going to kill us if we don't. And, you know, in the Holy Land Foundation trial in 2006 in Texas, you know, they had a memorandum, an explanatory memorandum, that talked about the fact that Americans would be easy to overcome and to commit civilization jihad because they we're going to be trying to protect the rights of the very people who are trying to subvert them. But, you know, I believe in the Teddy Roosevelt philosophy. Teddy Roosevelt said, we are a nation of immigrants. As such, everybody is welcome from any race, any country, any religion, if they want to be Americans, if they want to accept our values and our laws. If not, they can stay where they are.
Governor Kasich, see, I'm back. You appeared to back in another debate, a so-called backdoor to encrypted cell phone technology, which protects most smartphones that we all have from hacking. And it includes our phones, and it also protects the cell phones of the terrorists. Now, the tech companies and a group of MIT scientists, smart guys, right, warn that if they create a way for the FBI to have a backdoor into our encrypted communications, then the bad guys will exploit it too. And they say that this is going to cause more security problems than it would solve for everyday Americans. Are they wrong?
Well, look, the Joint Terrorism Task Forces need resources and they need tools. And those are made up of the FBI, state, and local law enforcement. And Megan, it's best not to talk anymore about backdoors and encryption. It'll get solved, but it needs to be solved in the Situation Room of the White House with the technology folks.
Public testimony.
Yeah, but I just have to tell you that it's best with some of these things not be said. Now, I want to go back to something. See, I was there when Reagan rebuilt the military. I was there in '89 when the wall came tumbling down because we were strong. And I was there when we went in the Gulf War, and we didn't win that war just from the air. We won that war by assembling a group of Arab leaders who stood in the Rose Garden and stood with America. We want to destroy ICE. It has to be in the air and on the ground. It has to be with our friends in the Arab world and our friends in Europe, the coalition that we had when we went to the first Gulf War. And then when we win that, and we will win that against ISIS as it settles down, we should leave, because we shouldn't be policemen of the world. But what we need to do is turn it over to the regional powers to be able to handle that. But we have a unique time in America to connect with people all around the world that understand that there's an existential threat against all of them. The Arabs, the Jordanians, the Saudis, the Egyptians, our friends in Europe, and including the Turks. So we have a unique opportunity to bring everybody together. I saw Reagan do it. I've seen other presidents do it. And frankly, if you want to be commander-in-chief, you have to have the experience. At the same time we're doing all that, the Pentagon must be reformed so we get what we need for our men and women in uniform. All of that together, we're going to be just fine, and America is going to continue to lead the world.
Governor, thank you.
Governor Bush, just today, a Wounded Warrior organization designed to help wounded veterans and their families is coming under fire for raising tens of millions of dollars, but spending almost half of that on travel and hotels and dinners and luxury, lavish conferences. So taking care of veterans is obviously a huge issue in the country that has asked so many to serve and sacrifice so much. If you were president, would you police these charity organizations that say they're helping vets?
Of course, and there's all sorts of ways that can be done at the state, local, and federal level to do that. But the first duty of the next president of the United States is to fix the mess of the Department of Veterans Affairs. That's his first responsibility. Look, we have waiting lists for veterans that are leaving because of the sequester, where we're gutting the military. More and more military personnel are leaving, becoming veterans, and the waiting list grows. They've given out $140 million of bonuses to Veterans Department employees, including reducing the waiting list without giving veterans care. People died, and only 3 people have been fired. I will make sure that we fire the sheer incompetence inside the Department of Veterans Affairs, and that we'll give veterans a choice card so that they don't have to travel hours and hours to get care if they want to go to their private provider. You want to make the Veterans Administration do a better job? Give veterans choices, and you'll get a much better result. And as it relates to all the other organizations, let me give you a good example. In Houston, Texas, there's an organization in place because someone acted on their heart, wanted to make sure that there's no homeless veterans in Houston. And they've come pretty close to that without federal government assistance. We need to mobilize the entire country to deal with our veterans and treat them with much more respect than they get today.
Governor Bush, thank you. Speaking of veterans.
Yeah, guys, without a doubt. Honestly,
So
he's
here
touching
over-
on very couple good points.
So over here on Blab, we have a user. His name's Richard, and he's been talking about. We've had a quick discussion, kind of about ISIS and how. What is your guys' opinions on this? So, is it better to speak softly and carry a big stick, so be a little more on the intimidating side, but be prepared to do something.
Would you say be quiet or carry a big stick?
Be quiet and carry a big stick, or be loud and not be prepared to do anything.
Big stick is always better, so I'll go with that choice.
I agree. You're more. I feel like you're more intimidating if you're quiet.
What do you mean by that? What do you mean by that exactly?
We're gonna come right at you. We're gonna blah, blah, blah. But also, the White House, I feel like, is like this conversation that we've been having is kind of babying the whole ISIS thing. When in the rest of the world, the White House.
What are you referring to by babying? Who's babying who? Can you be a little more precise?
The White House isn't giving it enough attention. They're kind of just pushing it under the rug. Like, okay, there's ISIS. We're not going to really worry about it. Obama didn't really want to like make.
What should they do differently? What should they do differently? What should they do differently?
I don't know. What do you guys think?
What are they doing wrong, and what should they do differently? Because we're talking about
it's too late now. Okay, let's backtrack a couple of years. Why the hell were we in there to begin with?
Thank you.
Why are we trying to change the structure of their government?
There's nothing we can do about that now.
Third of all, now that we fucked up their whole like situation over there, now we're trying to fix it, which is causing even more problems. And now it's gone to an international level where now France and all these other countries are involved because ISIS has penetrated all those other countries. So now it's not only a U.S. issue that technically we started, but now it's a global thing now where we need to start looking out for terrorists.
Yeah, and that kind of goes on to why we have alliances with all these countries.
People to this group.
Yeah, it shouldn't be as easy as me running a Facebook group.
Kevin, listen.
Exactly.
Like you touched on a really good point though, because like the United States has so many alliances with different countries, being Europe, France, and all these places, where that now that ISIS, because they see Americans as the devil, they see America as the devil. That anybody who associates themselves with America or agrees with the United States in any shape, form, or way is considered to be advocates for the devil, and that's just their belief. And that's why this is happening, because the more we dig our teeth into this sandwich of just
and honestly, a big part of us being
that's what happens.
A big part of like.
You need to see what we did over there. Like, yeah, but imagine, look how mad we were when 9/11 happened. Do you see what we did over there with the casualties and the civilians that died? 3 times as much as the actual troops that we send over there. Mind you, they're not killing the actual people, the enemy, but they're killing civilians around them. And like 3 times the numbers of casualties.
And people
like,
that possibly
what did this war benefit? Nothing, except the oil people that are trying to get the oil pipes that are running through Syria so that they can get the money, because as of right now, the US dollar is depreciating so badly that they need any form to like,
what can we do now? Like, what can we do now kind of thing?
Yeah, I know, but
what solution do we have to this problem?
China is slowly taking over when it comes to owning the world currency at this point. They've brought out all of America's gold, and they have as much collateral to back up their yuan.
If we're gonna go to China
took a hit not too long ago.
Guys, ladies and gentlemen, let me tell you something.
They did that on purpose because they were forcing the exporters to pay for their stuff in yuan. They wanted them to pay in yuan because that's how China was going to start buying their stuff. They're not using the US dollar anymore. They don't want to use it anymore. They want to use the yuan.
There's more, you're right. There's more US dollars outside the US, actually out there in other economies, world economy, than the US itself. But that's besides the point. The point is that US economy, as long as US is the largest consumer economy, China is 1 billion employees making us plastic forks. They can own all the gold in the world. They can own blocks. They can own buildings. Nobody's going to come and collect. That's never going to happen. That's it. Yeah. There's nothing to talk about.
No, listen, Aaron.
Let the Russians go in. Let the Russians go broke. Let the Russians be hated by the Middle East. We're slowly, what is the solution? Slowly get out. Yeah. Slowly, step at a time. Let them go broke. Yeah. Let them have another Afghanistan. Let them.
Yeah. I agree with that, and also like this whole things happened because America invaded over there. But it's like if back then they have like the Gaddafi, the Saddam Hussein, and there was no threats towards America like it is now. Like if that's how those kind of people wants to live, then like let them kind of thing. Like if that's how they like to run a government, a living system. I know it's fucked up. Because then those same people, like Saddam Hussein, did horrible thing to his own people, But yo, I'm to the point that like tough luck almost. I know it's very selfish. It's very bad. But if they want to live that way, if that's how they like to live their life, then like let them. Fuck it.
Yeah. And Pedro, listen up too. Keep in mind with Aaron as well, you too. When you were referring to China and their ownership of the United States, I looked up an article online and it says China owns about $1.27 trillion worth of United States Treasury and bonds. Duh. No, but listen, just keep listening. If you consider that, I watched this video recently on YouTube regarding United States finances, and
that was
yeah, and it tells you about
YouTube. A video on YouTube doesn't tell me.
Yeah, but it's about
to me at all. But continue. I'm sorry.
Yeah, but it's a matter of statistics, and these researchers at Yale University were studying this, and they were discussing about if China continues to have ownership of the United States in this fashion, and how they're buying bonds from the United States, buying land and ownership and everything, then eventually by the time my generation, I'm 18 years old, by the time my generation turns 30 years old, we're going to undergo the biggest financial crisis ever since the Great Depression of the 20s. And that is the reality of things. Our economy is going to go down the drains because we are in such critical debt to China. And it's going to be impacting everybody, even the top 1%.
We beg for jobs from them. The reason why we have the thousands of jobs now is because we agreed to build ships for China, which would then give us American jobs for them to build those ships, because it takes a long time. It takes years to build these ships.
Yeah.
Give us jobs. Like,
how many jobs is that?
We need China. China doesn't need us because they have other countries who get them from them.
That's insane.
Listen, listen. That's kind of.
I think we need each other. I honestly think we need each other.
Yeah, I think
both economies would have a lot to work through if we didn't have each other. China relies on us, we rely on China, and I don't know who would relies on who more, but we both definitely rely on each other.
Yeah, and that's what we should be focusing on more too.
China has no country outside of Hong Kong, Beijing, and their main capitals. If you go outside of it, it's all poverty. There's no jobs.
Yeah, and China relies on the United States. It's a very simple fact that China is the #1 at doing more of the same. They're the #1 at producing the same thing a lot. But United States, they're the innovators. They're the one who come up with the next thing that China loves to duplicate. So that's why I see that correlation, that they need each other in that sense.
True, because they are the biggest exporters and we are the biggest importers. And that's why we need each other. And that's why we should not be focusing our efforts on ISIS or anything like that. We should keep it in consideration, but we shouldn't be devoting majority of our funds to that when we have bigger issues on our hand regarding our economy. And that goes into thinking about, we had a Blab user, I think.
Yeah, just a thought to chew. Richard on Blab also brought up a rumor that the CIA was created by, that ISIS was created by the CIA.
It was. That's the thing. That's why Hillary is always accompanied with it, because Hillary helped fund that militia group. We gave them weapons, we gave them guns, and they turned on us, and now we can't handle the situation. That's exactly what happened.
Well, hold on a second. ISIS, you know, there could have been transactions, who knows, but like Saudi Arabia.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah, I mean, Saudi Arabia, that's where those families are originally from. So like those feuds, the feuds of thousands of years, I mean, that's the reason certain noses shouldn't be stuck into certain things. But once again, how will Dick Cheney and Halliburton make their money, you know? What oil fields would they serve? So that's why all this talk of foreign policies and stuff, you know, just like you guys said, why concentrate on serious issues for regular Americans, for millions of people in this country, when we can talk about bull crap and, you know, pardon my French, swing our wieners, you know, who's got the biggest one, or who's got the bigger stick or a carrot, you know? So
the Kardashians and porn.
And for that matter, let's figure out what their takes on the foreign policies and everything. So, guys, let's take a look back at the debate right now, and we'll find out what their take on foreign policy is.
I watch Kardashians before I watch Trump. It's huge, man.
The whole engine of government has to move when you see a crisis like that. And I've had many situations in the state of Ohio where we've had to move, whether it's storms, whether it was a horrible school shooting. There are many crises that come. A water crisis in Toledo. You've got to be on top of it. You've got to go the extra mile. You've got to work with local communities, and you've got to work with the federal government, because you realize that people are depending on you. And so you go the extra mile, but people have to be alert. They have to be alert to problems. And when you see a problem, you must act quickly to get on top of it. And people at home are saying they've got a problem, listen to them, because most of the time they're absolutely correct. So the fact is that we work for the people don't work for us, and we have to have an attitude when we're in government of servanthood. That's what really matters. We serve you, you don't serve us. We listen to you, and then we act.
Senator Rubio, on the issue of climate change, in 2008, you wanted Florida to get ahead of other states and establish a cap and trade system, a program for carbon emissions, which many Republicans thought at the time would hurt the Florida economy. Now you're a skeptic of climate change science, and in fact, you warn that federal efforts to fight climate change will cost U.S. jobs and hurt the U.S. economy. So why the change?
Well, Brett, first, that's not entirely the story. At the time, the liberal governor of Florida, who claimed he was a Republican, his name was Charlie Crist, he wanted to impose cap and trade on Florida, and I opposed him. I was the first person out of the box that opposed him on it. And then we saw that the leading candidates for president at the time, both the Republican and the Democrats, all supported it. And what we said is, if they're going to impose this on us, we better prepare to protect the state from it. But I have never supported cap and trade, and I never thought it was a good idea. And I was clear about that at the time. And I do not believe it's a good idea now. I do not believe that we have to destroy our economy in order to protect our environment. And especially with these programs are asking us to pass that will do nothing to help the environment, but will be devastating for our economy. When I am president of the United States of America, there will never be any cap and trade in the United States.
Thanks, Senator.
All right, we're going to move on, because coming up, immigration and something you've never seen before. Stay tuned right after this break.
Is it going to be a message from Trump, never seen before? What is it? What is
Immigration. Kardashian.
Oh, man. Immigration. Well, now we're coming on to the thick of the conversation. That's what everyone's really been thinking about.
I feel like everybody's already kind of talked about it, like, indirectly a little bit, though. Like, everybody already has their opinions, and they kind of come out. I feel like immigration's a lot broader than we see it. Like, it covers so many different issues. Like, even just ISIS. Like, it even covers that. Like, immigration, I don't know. I also feel like we want to just, like, put, like, a ABC rule on immigration where it's going to have to be, like, case by case. These are real people coming to a country, just like we go to other countries. Yes, there has to be, like, something to fill out. Yes, there should be a process, but...
Legal process.
A legal process, I agree. But at the same time, like, we want it to be, like, really easy. Like, people, I feel like we're getting lazy. We just want this to be easy. Why can't this just be easy? Why can't we just figure it out? Like, this isn't just, oh, yeah, we're just going to either let people in or we're not. And I feel like that's what all the candidates have said so far.
At the end of the day, they're so afraid to make a choice. It doesn't matter whether it's good or bad. Just as long as you make one and it's done, they're like, shit, like, that's it. It's made, you know. Let's keep trying to move on to a different issue, but
they're not talking about real issues. You know, we can talk about legal immigrants. The reality is there are up to, what, 30 million illegal immigrants in this country? So the whole thing of registering everyone, you know, kicking them out and letting them come back and trying to go through the system, you know, they can only handle about 100,000 cases every year. It's impossible. So there's got to be, they're afraid of the word amnesty, but if you want those tax dollars, if you want these people to participate, you know, not just in the local economies, but in the American economy, you have to come up with some kind of amnesty or work visa. I mean, Rubio had a good idea down here in Florida until he decided he was going to run for president and wouldn't even support his own bill.
But all of that's in place. That's what I'm, like, frustrated about, because all of that's in place. Like, there doesn't need to be all that much change. We just, we had to figure out with the people that are already here illegally. I feel like that's the biggest problem. But I don't think there has to necessarily be a change for letting people in. I think, we need to stop letting in people illegally. But I think the process is already there. Like, we don't need to throw it away and add a whole new process. We just need to figure out what to do with the people here that are illegal.
Immigration through the Mexican border into the U.S. is at negative now. It's not even net zero anymore. So these things, they're not even problems anymore, really. The problem is the people that are here. So will they talk about it? Absolutely not. You know why? Because their voters, they're not interested in hearing things. It's illegal, so it must be the devil. So they won't talk about this issue. They won't have a real discussion about it. All they'll talk about is that immigrants bad, immigrants rapists, immigrants are terrorists. That's all we're gonna say.
Do you know what Bernie?
I just want to entertain this tweet real quick. I think it's just I just want to entertain it. What Trump is doing to the Fox News debate is exactly what I think most of us are hoping he'll do to the Republican vote. Not show up.
That's something that we all would really hope so for that to happen.
I just thought that was very entertaining.
Yeah.
That was witty and good tweet. Thank you for that. I
Good wording right there.
It would be incredible if he won the nomination. It will never happen, but it would be insane. Bernie would just destroy any person with that's borderline sane.
I think it's on, guys. The debate. I think Ruby's talking or something.
Yeah.
Well,
yeah. All right. Yeah, let's go take a look back at the video then. In that case, what do you guys say?
Yeah, go ahead.
Hold on, and there we go.
Within 2 years of getting elected, you were co-sponsoring legislation to create a path to citizenship. In your words, amnesty. Haven't you already proven that you cannot be trusted on this issue?
No, because if you look at the quote, and it's very specific, and it says blanket amnesty. I do not support blanket
But you went
amnesty.
on
I do not support amnesty.
You said more than that, sir.
No, I don't support blanket.
You said earned path to citizenship is basically code for amnesty. You supported earned path to citizenship.
It absolutely has been. And at the time and the context of that was in 2009 and 2010, where the last effort for legalization was an effort done in the Senate. It was an effort led by several people that provided almost an instant path with very little obstacles moving forward. What I've always said is this issue does need to be solved. They've been talking about this issue for 30 years and nothing ever happens. And I'm going to tell you exactly how we're going to deal with it when I am president. Number one, we're going to keep ISIS out of America. If we don't know who you are or why you're coming, you will not get into the United States. Number two, we are going to enforce our immigration laws. I am the son and the grandson of immigrants. And I know that securing our borders is not anti-immigrant, and we will do it. We will hire 20,000 new border agents instead of 20,000 new IRS agents. We will finish the 700 miles of fencing and walls our nation needs. We'll have mandatory E-Verify, a mandatory entry-exit tracking system. And until all of that is in place and all of that is working and we can prove to the people of this country that illegal immigration is under control, nothing else is going to happen. We are not going to round up and deport 12 million people, but we're not going to go around handing out citizenship cards either. There will be a process. We will see what the American people are willing to support, but it will not be unconstitutional executive orders like the ones Barack Obama has forced on.
Governor Bush, do you agree that Senator Rubio has not reversed himself on his immigration promise?
Well, I'm kind of confused because he was the sponsor of the Gang of Eight bill that did require a bunch of thresholds, but it ultimately allowed for citizenship over an extended period of time. I mean, that's a fact. And he asked me to support that. And I supported him because I think people, when you're elected, you need to do things. And he led the charge to finally fix this immigration problem that has existed now for, as Marco says, for 30 years. And then he cut and run because it wasn't popular amongst conservatives, I guess. Here's what I believe. And I wrote a book about this called Immigration Wars. You can get it at $2.99 on Amazon. It's not a bestseller, I can promise you. There won't be any, you can get it. It's affordable for everybody. We should have a path to legal status for the 12 million people that are here illegally. It means come out from the shadows, pay a fine, earn legal status by working, by paying taxes, learning English, not committing crimes.
Andres and I are heading out. Two new hosts will be here when
not cutting them
this is over. So don't leave.
Are patiently waiting outside. That is the
guys.
It's good talking to you all.
It was a pleasure talking with all you guys. Aaron, I love your wit, man. I love your conversation. Bernie Sanders all the way. Pedro. Hey, you guys, keep staying cool. Keep it real, all right? I'm Andres.
You wrote a book where you changed
our host tonight was Victoria, and I hope you guys enjoy the debate.
Legalization.
Thanks a lot, guys. Your host coming up, so
we're not going to be able to do anything on this issue.
Stay tuned
until we first bring illegal immigration
later,
under
guys.
control. The American people have been told for 30 years they're going to enforce the border, they're going to build the wall, and it never gets built, and it never happens. It is very clear there will be no progress on this issue in any way, shape, or form until you prove to the people of this country that illegal immigration is under control. And when I'm president, we are going to bring it under control once and for all after 30 years of talking about it.
Marco, he brought up my name. I have supported a consensus approach to solving this problem wherever it came up. And in 2007, it almost passed when my brother was president of the United States. A bipartisan approach got close. Barack Obama actually had the poison pill to stop it then. And when you led the charge with the Gang of Eight, I supported it because you asked me to.
Well,
I think it's important for people in elected office to try to forge consensus to solve problems. There's never going to be a perfect bill. But when you didn't do that and you asked people to support, you shouldn't cut and run. But Megan, you should stick with it. And that's exactly what happened. He cut and run. And that's a tragedy because now it's harder and harder to actually solve this problem.
There's not going to be any consensus on this issue until we enforce our immigration law. That is abundantly clear. No, you are not going to be able to ram down the throat of the American people your approach. The only way we're going to be able to move forward after 2 migratory crises with minors, after 2
Hey guys, we're logging in now. Don't leave us. Don't leave us. We're coming.
Bring illegal immigration under control. And until that happens, there's not going to be any consensus on this issue.
Let's move on. Senator Cruz. When Senator Rubio proposed that bill creating a path to citizenship, you proposed an amendment. It would have allowed for legalization, but not citizenship. Yes, it would. Pressed last month on why you supported legalization, you claimed that you didn't, right? Like you just did. I saw that. You argued that this was just a poison pill amendment, basically something designed to kill the bill and not actually get it through. But that is not, however, how it sounded at the time. Watch.
This bill to be voted down. I don't want immigration reform to fail. I want immigration reform to pass. I believe if this amendment were to pass, the chances of this bill passing into law would increase dramatically.
I believe if the amendments I introduced were adopted, that the bill would pass. And my effort in introducing them was to find a solution that reflected common ground and that fixed the problem.
If the proponents of this bill actually demonstrate a commitment not to politics, not to campaigning all the time, but to actually fixing this problem, to finding a middle ground.
Guys, don't go anywhere. We are just getting started. Yes, we are. We're going to let Meerkat so we can talk to you guys. Yes, Meerkat and Periscope and Blab. We're here. Hello.
Was that all an act? It was pretty convincing.
You know, the amendment you're talking about is one sentence. It's 38 words. Anyone can go online at tedcruz.org and read exactly what it said. In those 38 words, it said anyone here illegally is permanently ineligible for citizenship. It didn't say a word about legalization.
But the bill allowed both. The bill you were amending allowed citizenship and legalization.
But Megan, the bill was 1,000 pages. I introduced a series of amendments, each designed to fix problems in the bill. The fact that each amendment didn't fix every problem didn't mean that I supported the rest of the bill. And I'll citizenship off the table was important. It revealed the hypocrisy of the proponents of this bill who were looking for votes. Listen, we can solve immigration. We just heard an argument back and forth that we can't solve immigration. I have a detailed immigration plan that is on my website, tedcruz.org. It was designed with Iowa's own Congressman Steve King and Jeff Sessions, and we have the tools in federal law to do this now. We can build the fence. We can triple the Border Patrol. We can end sanctuary cities by cutting off funding to them. We can end welfare for those here illegally.
We're just going to hear what he has to say about immigration.
Political will, because too many Democrats and sadly too many Republicans don't want to solve this problem. If I am elected president, we will secure the borders and we will end illegal immigration.
Senator Paul, you know how Washington works. Do you buy that?
I was there and I saw the debate. I saw Ted Cruz say we'll take citizenship off the table and then the bill will pass, and I'm for the bill. The bill would involve legalization. He can't have it both ways. But what is particularly insulting, though, is that he is the...
Ready, Pedro, and everybody else go. Are they in the queue?
For amnesty. Everybody's for amnesty.
No, they're not.
But it's a falseness. And that's an authenticity problem, that everybody he knows is not as perfect as him because we're all for amnesty. I was for legalization. I think, frankly, if you have border security, you can have legalization. So was Ted, but now he says it wasn't so. That's not true.
Go ahead, sir.
You know, John Adams famously said, facts are stubborn things. The facts are very, very simple. When that battle was waged, my friend Senator Rubio chose to stand with Barack Obama and Harry Reid and Chuck Schumer and support amnesty. And I stood alongside Jeff Sessions and Steve King, and we led the fight against amnesty. And if you want to know who's telling the truth, you should look and ask people like Jeff Sessions and Steve King and Rush Limbaugh and Mark Levin, all of whom say, as Jeff Sessions said, responding to these false attacks just recently in Alabama, he said, if it wasn't for Ted Cruz, the Gang of Eight Rubio Schumer bill would have passed. But because Ted stood up and helped lead the effort, millions rose up to kill it.
Senator Rubio, even Chuck Schumer, your co-sponsor of that bill, agrees with Ted Cruz on this.
I understand, but let me respond. That was mentioned on this in this answer, and so I'm going to respond on this way. This is the lie that Ted's campaign is built on, and Rand touched upon it. That he's the most conservative guy, and everyone else is a rhino. The truth is, Ted, throughout this campaign, you've been willing to say or do anything in order to get votes. Ted, you worked for George W. Bush's campaign. You helped design George W. Bush's. You helped design George W. Bush's immigration policy. And then when you got to the Senate, you didn't even part of the video where you said on the issue of people that are here illegally, we can reach a compromise. And then in the committee, you said, I want to bring people out of the shadows. Now you want to trump on immigration. But you can't, we're not going to beat Hillary Clinton with someone who's willing to say or do anything to win an election.
Go ahead, Senator Cruz.
Okay, we're going to let him respond and then we'll talk about this.
Like it's a popularity contest.
That's what it is.
I like Marco. He's very charming. He's very smooth. But the facts are simple. When he ran for election in the state of Florida, he told the people of Florida, if you elect me, I will lead the fight against amnesty. When I ran in Texas, I told the people of Texas, if you elect me, I will lead the fight against amnesty. We both made the identical promises. But when we came to Washington, we made a different choice. Marco made the choice to go the direction of the major donors to support amnesty because he thought it was politically advantageous. I honored my commitments, and as president, I will honor every commitment that I make to the men and women of this country.
Go ahead, Governor Christie.
I want to ask the people in the audience, like, I'm standing here, I watched the video of Senator Cruz. I watched the video of Senator Rubio. I heard what they said. And this is why you need to send someone from outside of Washington to Washington. I feel like I need a Washington to English dictionary converter. I heard what they both said. I saw it on the video. And the fact is, this is what makes a difference when you're a governor. You can change your mind. Ted could change his mind. Marco could change his mind. It's perfectly legal in this country to change your mind. But when you're a governor, you have to admit it. You can't hide behind parliamentary tricks. That's the difference, and that's the kind of leader we need in the White House. Stop the Washington Bull, and let's get things done.
Let's get to a YouTube question. Let's get to a YouTube question. This is a question from a YouTube creator with over 2 million subscribers. Watch.
We'll see the question and then we'll talk about immigration.
I'm Dulce Candy, a YouTube creator who immigrated to the United States from Mexico when I was a little girl. Since then, I am proud to say that I served in the armed forces in Iraq, became a citizen, and I am now an entrepreneur. There are many immigrants who contribute positively to the American economy, but some of the comments in the campaign make us question our place in this country. If America does not seem like a welcoming place for immigrant entrepreneurs, will the American economy suffer?
Dr. Carson,
great question. That's an awesome question.
Well, as I said before, we are a land of immigrants, but we have to be intelligent about the way we form our immigration policy.
I'm going to mute him.
And that's one of the reasons.
And we're going to have a discussion. So my thing is, I just looked up Ted Cruz's immigration plan. It says, first, secure the border once and for all. Second, strengthen and enforce our existing immigration laws. Third, pursue reforms to the legal immigration system that will prioritize the interests and well-being of Americans. Do you think this will still allow people to want to be over here? I mean, of course, they're not going to want to come and fight to be over here in that sense. But do you think it'll stop like illegal immigration?
No, I don't think it's going to stop illegal immigration. I think America's will forever be the land of the free, the land of opportunity, a land where dreams can come true. I don't think it'll stop people from trying to come over here.
You said at least for foreigners?
Yeah, at least
people born here, it sucks.
that is true. It's a lot of hard work over here. They don't understand that concept. But even with all of the craziness, I know my family back home, America will always remain the land of the
foreigners,
of the multitude of opportunities that are available to us. So I don't think it's going to stop it, but it's kind of crazy to me to know that regardless of which president is in office, but that immigration will forever be a hot topic. It'll always be an issue. What do you think about that, Douglas? How do you feel that we can't get a hold of immigration?
Well, my doctor is Italian, and my physical therapist, by that I mean Tai Chi instructor, is Chinese.
Wow.
Pretty much everyone I know who's a professional of whatever is foreign.
So how do you feel about that? Having such a diverse group around you trying to better your life. How do you feel about immigration when it comes to what they're talking about here?
Yeah, I guess it's okay.
I'm sure you don't know all their personal stories, but I'm sure like one of them had to come over here illegally.
I understand.
Very possible, or maybe their parents.
Yeah, like someone had to come over here to set the groundwork for them.
Exactly. There are plenty of candidates that are debating today that want to allow immigrants who are in the country, who are here illegally, to actually obtain citizenship. And, they're allowed to stay here as long as they pay their taxes.
Right.
So, Alina, how do you feel about that? Do you think that they should stay here, or do you think that we should kick all illegal immigrants?
I think everything is individual. If person established here, if he has work, if he can dedicate himself to this country, why can't you make him legal as long as he can pay taxes? I think the biggest problem of the United States is I'm an immigrant. I'm immigrant as well, so I'm from Russia. I'm not from here. But I think that problem I know from inside because I'm an immigrant.
Right.
And I think the biggest problem is that the United States has very, very, it's like a double standard when some people can get status and some people, they are the same, they have the same abilities, they have the same ability to work, but for some reason officer denies them, and but they don't want to live. But because sometimes they have kids here, sometimes they have boyfriend, work, everything. But the United States even don't give them ability to work, so they don't give them papers. So they have to work under the table, and don't pay taxes. Make them legal. They are ready to pay taxes. They want to pay taxes. They want to be legal. They are ready to work. But I know some people, they've been trying to get visa for 5 years, for 10 years, and they can't. Not either. And people who pass the test, they know more about America than we do. They have to study for months. You pass the United States exactly. I'd say that we have to get citizenship way process. You're in the car, some work in something. We really do to work and pay taxes. But they can. And it's some of them workers, so they can work with their connects. They can do things.
I don't remember which celebrity socialite said something about if immigrants are allowed to come here or illegal immigrants are forced to get kicked out, who's going to wash your toilet? I cannot remember who said that in English. A Google search should be able to help us. Definitely. That was a huge thing. I think it was like on a talk show and something about then who's going to clean the toilet. I think it was like on The View or something. So I'm sure Siobhan's looking it up right now. Pedro, do you remember that happening? Do you remember that? Kelly Osbourne. Yes, Kelly Osbourne. But she came back on record saying she didn't mean it like that.
Pedro's a Trump supporter, so we can't really like.
Pedro, are you really a Trump supporter?
No, that's not accurate at all.
It says Trump love.
That's the conspiracy theorist.
Trump thumper.
Pedro, how do you feel about Ted Cruz saying, without immigration reform, we're allowing criminals and terrorists to defy the laws and come in here?
No, I think I explained this about an hour ago. About the way that you come to the United States. It's that obviously if you are in a place and you want to come to the United States and that place is not borderline, you have to take a plane. There's no other way for you to do it.
Right.
So you have to go to the American embassy and you gotta show them your assets. They gotta make sure you have they have to make sure you have you're not wealthy, but you have money. You gotta show your bank account statements. Like make sure that you are a stand-up citizen in your country, that you're not a criminal. Just for you to get a visa. Now, for you getting a visa, you're already going through a process with the American government. They know who you are. They know your name. They know your family, but they know what you're about. They talk to you. You have a screening. You can either say yes or no. Maybe they just don't think you should require a visa to go to the United States. They have their own reasons. But that's a way for you to get a visa and then fly to the United States. I'm totally for that. That's the way that I came here. But my mother had to do the whole thing or whatever. And then that's a big difference between illegal immigration. Illegal immigration is like if you are a criminal, which you could be, you don't have to sit in front of an American person to be a judge. Be like, well, yes, I believe you could come in. Or no, you can't. That's the biggest difference. That's what it differs. Now, in terms of what happened to the people that is here already, that's a very tough issue. I feel like I don't get paid enough to have that much of an opinion.
And it's crazy to me how they discuss criminals and terrorists and all these other things when America has the highest, gun violence. It has the most amount of incarcerated people in the entire world. Yeah. Why not focus on your color? Of color, that as well. So
minorities.
Exactly.
Let me share with you something about American people.
Okay.
About American people who's from America. That's for you. That's very funny. Yeah.
And this is the video you send us?
Yeah, just can I play it?
Okay.
Just about like you're an American guy.
Play my girl's video.
Okay. After we play the video, we're gonna get back to the debate.
Okay.
Just watch it all. It's very funny.
Okay.
Hi there.
Hi.
Nice day, huh?
Yeah, finally, right?
Where are you from? Your English is perfect.
San Diego. You speak English there.
Where are you from?
Well, I was born in Orange County, but I never actually lived there.
I mean, before that.
Before I was born.
Yeah, like, where are your people from?
Well, my great-grandma was from Seoul.
Korean. I knew it. I was like, she's either Japanese or Korean. But I was leaning more towards Korean.
Oh my God.
It was really good.
30 years ago.
Oh my
Actually,
God.
really like kimchi.
Cool.
Look at Korea.
What about you? Where are you from?
San Francisco.
But where are you from?
Oh, I'm just American.
Really? You're Native American?
No, just regular American.
Yes, girl, grow him.
Oh, well, I guess my grandparents are from England.
Oh, well.
Hello, Governor. What's
Wow, this is great.
Double, double, toil and trouble. Mother Europe, beware Jack the Ripper. Bloody hell. Cheerio.
The background in her eyes are really bothering.
Yes. Cut it out. No, we're not talking about her bags. We need to focus on the message.
Weird. Must be a Korean thing.
Oh, yes, girl.
That was pretty awesome.
I love that. That was funny. What are the people on Blab saying? What are the people on Blab saying?
They are saying that for sure they don't know who they're voting for, but they will not be voting for Donald Trump.
Okay.
So they're on our side, it seems like.
And about immigration?
Immigration, they are saying that America is a melting pot. We should stay a melting pot. We were founded as a melting pot. And that legal immigrants are being made to feel like third-class citizens, which I really love that because I completely think it's true. Pedro, where are you from?
I was born in Venezuela.
Do you feel like a third-class citizen?
No, not at all.
No, not at all?
No.
What if you were to shake
the U.S.?
The what?
How the fuck did you have enough money to immigrate to the U.S.?
The what?
I'm making
Don't worry about
that.
To be honest, there's so many very wealthy Venezuelan people. Oh my God, they live in they live like in.
I was born in Venezuela.
Oh, okay, Kevin. With your little
I had to come over to America on a boat. It was really hard. Like, you don't understand.
By yourself or your mom? Or did you have a baby?
I had a baby.
Are you trying to?
I'm a baby. I'm a his baby.
Me and Trump.
I'm a his son. I'm a his son with Trump.
Oh my goodness. Is the debate over?
Trump would have a Russian baby.
Can you believe that Trump could ask for $5 million in this bullshit? It's apparently some PR coverage.
Oh, wow. Oh my goodness! It's all this because he didn't want
PR coverage from.
It is, and he didn't want to be there because Megyn Kelly is apparently against him, and he doesn't want to man up. He's like, I've already won every debate prior, so I don't need to be here. But the debates have started back. Let's watch, guys.
He's going to ask what you did for the poor, not what you did to keep government small. Senator Cruz is on the opposite side of this issue from you. So does that mean that you're getting in and he isn't?
No, you know, Chris, here's what happened with Medicaid in my state. We took the growth of Medicaid from over 10% in my second budget to 2.5% without cutting off one person or cutting one benefit. Because we innovated the government, and now mom and dad can stay in their own home rather than being forced into a nursing home. And then we decided we could bring $14 billion of our money. I mean, Washington doesn't have any money. It was our money. We brought them back to tend to the mentally ill because I don't think they ought to live in prison or live under a bridge, to treat the drug addicted so they're not in a in and out of door policy out of the prisons, and to help the working poor so they don't live in emergency rooms. How's it worked? Well, we have treated the drug addicted in our prisons, and we released them into the community, and our recidivism rate is less than 20%. That's basically bordering on a miracle because of our great prison director. The mentally ill, they've been stepped on for too long in this society, and we are beginning to treat them. In terms of my faith, look, all I say is that when I study scripture, I know that people who live in the shadows need to have a chance. But I'm not deciding that anybody's got to make these decisions the way that I do on the basis of what I do, but what I will tell you this. The time has come to stop ignoring the mentally ill in this country and begin to treat them and get them on their feet. Along, of course, with
stop ignoring, goddammit!
We don't want them in and out. We don't want them in and out of the prisons. Give people a chance. We talked about criminal justice reform. We've enacted it in our state. Look, the conservative
what's his health care plan
growth,
looking like?
and along with economic
all he knows
growth,
is he
goes
wants to get rid of
opportunity for
Obamacare.
everybody in America. Everybody ought to have a chance to be able to rise to their God-given purpose.
I mean, the rich stay alive longer and the poor pay for it.
400,000 jobs. And guess what? The formula is working. I'd suggest people take a look at it. Thank you.
Gentlemen, we had a case study on religious liberty just this last summer. A county clerk in Kentucky.
We're not even supposed to be discussing religion,
She
but okay.
issued marriage licenses to same-sex couples after the Supreme Court ruling, saying that it violated her religious beliefs. Governor Christie, you said that she must follow the law or be moved to another job that would be in keeping with her conscience. But some conservatives say that that violates her religious liberty.
Now, what I said, Chris, was that the law needs to be followed.
Because politics are not supposed to really have a religious backing. That's why I said we're not supposed to church and state.
To be able to do that. There should be someone else in that office who it didn't violate their conscience so they could follow the law of the state of Kentucky. I never said that Ms. Davis should either lose her job or that she had to do it. But what I did say was that the person who came in for the license needed to get it. And so if there's someone in that organization, and it turns out there was, who was willing to be able to do that, that's what we should do. But just as importantly, and I agree with what John said, you know, we all have our own individual interpretations of our faith. And here's the problem with what's going on around the world. The radical Islamic jihadists, upon each and every one of us. Every one of us. And the reason why this war against them is so important is that very basis of religious liberty. They want everyone in this country to follow their religious beliefs the way they do.
Seriously.
They do not want us to exercise religious liberty. That's why, as Commander-in-Chief, I will take on ISIS, not only because it keeps us safe, but because it allows us to absolutely
we're gonna cut him off.
Religious affairs the way we find in our heart and in our souls. As a Catholic, that's what I want to do. And no matter what your faith is, that's
I'm gonna pause him. Are you gonna vote for a president based on his religious ideals? Is that what we're gonna do now?
Yeah, because religion shapes people's perception on what they think about the world.
Okay.
So somebody who's a Christian can't call themselves a Christian without abiding by Christian rules and dictating in that way.
Okay, but continue. Do you guys think that a president should even have to state whether he's Christian, Jewish, or Muslim? I feel like that should be besides the point. Yes, it should. I think the credentials are what allow the president to have a stake in the race. Like if you come from a law background, that's always a good thing. If you came from like a governmental position, you were in the Senate or the House, that's a good thing. That's a good thing. Yeah. But why are we talking about your? It doesn't matter to me if you're Catholic or Christian, because either way it goes, I know that you believe in something higher than you. Even if you didn't, you're in a spot where you feel like you're gonna put America first. For sure. I'm sorry if I butcher your name. Aina?
Anus.
Oh my God. How do you say your name? Aina? Oh, we can't hear you. Did you unmute yourself? You're not muted.
I think she just wants to listen.
Oh, she just wants to listen. Oh, okay. What are the people on the lab saying?
Guys, what's the question? Tell me, please.
I was saying, does religion play a role in who you decide to vote for? Do them disclosing their religious beliefs?
Listen, a lot of people still live in Middle Ages stereotypes that religion really make any sense because they still believe in it's always artificial gods. So, of course, people will make their decision based on that. You cannot do anything of this. So politicians will play this card, and it is what it is.
So it will have no stake in who you decide to vote for or who you think should run this country.
It doesn't really matter.
Yeah, okay. We're going to get back to the debate. Let's see what they are talking about.
It requires restraint, but the only restraint consistent with liberty is self-restraint. There's a lot packed into that statement, but the bottom line is we must have virtue. We must have a religion.
We're like Republican candidates. These guys look so old and boring.
And it's not always going to be but if we don't know right and wrong, I think we have lost our way.
Oh my God.
I'm unmoored. And I think without the religious...
Where's the Latino candidate?
I think we have a cutest one up there. Horribly in the wrong.
Shut up, Kevin.
Just 30 seconds to answer my specific... Just 30 seconds to answer my specific question. Do you favor the idea that abortion should be a states' rights issue, and if a liberal state wants to make it legal, that that's their choice? Yes or no?
No, both a federal and a state approach. I have said that we could leave it to the states, but I've also introduced a federal solution as well. So the federal solution would be the Life at Conception Act, which is an act that would federalize the issue. But I've also said, for the most part, these issues would be left back to the states.
Women, tell your take on all this.
Roe v. Wade nationalized the issue. If you actually have the court,
Well, our take on, let me pause him. Our take on what, Kirill?
On the issues that we just talking about.
Abortion. Man, that's a tough topic.
I'll let you go first.
My opinion on abortion is I don't believe in abortions. I'm not someone who would say, yeah, you know, that's the thing to do. But I do believe that any woman should have the right to decide whether she should carry a child and give birth to a child, or if she wants to terminate a child. That is not my decision to make for anybody, and nobody should ever make that decision for me. So I am pro-life, but I am also pro-choice. I'm pro-life for myself, but I'm pro-choice for everybody else.
Okay.
How about
Somebody's
you?
trying to get in. He said, "Is the website not working?" No, it's working. The reason I asked him, like, what topic are you talking about? Because you said the women. I think the men should have a perspective on this as well, especially the men who are upstanding enough to be on the side of the women. If she does, the woman who decides to have,
You should ask me.
Douglas, how do you feel about abortion?
Mandatory abortions for all, including the men.
I love you, Douglas.
I feel like abortion should be regulated in a sense. Like, certain precautions should be taken if you are wanting to get an abortion. Like, depending on like the time frame of the conception and also like the circumstance. Like, if you're having unprotected sex and you're getting an abortion every other weekend, that's an issue. That's a problem, and you're abusing the system. Now, if you were raped by your uncle or raped in some type of situation, who am I to tell you to give birth to that child? That's your uterus. That's your decision. I, for one, am pro-life in a sense of I don't believe in abortion unless it's a medical issue or something that's gonna with a child or something. But I can't dictate how a female controls her uterus. You know, whatever you have to tell yourself to cope with that decision, go with it. But it is what it is. You're killing an infant in your stomach, pretty much. But whatever you have to tell yourself to like get through it, it's whatever. I don't lose any respect for you, but it is what it is. You know.
Yeah. You have a blog user who said that I do not think any government has the right to decide for the citizens whether they can get an abortion or not.
Let's listen to this victim of unprotected sex, Ruby.
Oh my goodness. They have a desire to conquer the Middle East and to become the dominant power.
You're slipping, you're falling, you don't know what's happening.
That is what they're building in right now and developing arrangements capable of reaching the United States. And that is why they're going to use those $100 billion to expand their conventional capabilities and
people Periscope and Miracle. If you don't understand why we're laughing, it's because one of our users just said that Marco Rubio was the result.
They can do business with them.
Never mind. Just come log into DINtv.com and chat with us so you can hear what's being said.
Marco Rubio is wrong.
He's so cute. I think he's cute.
Yeah, Marco Rubio is one of the better looking
in
people.
10 months. If I were president of the United States right now, I'd be lining up our allies to say that if one cross T or one dotted I does not occur, they violate the agreement. We slap back on sanctions. We can slap on sanctions alone on day one, but it's not going to be anywhere near as effective. But the president needs to be laying the groundwork right now.
D,
for
I'm
the
sorry,
ability
it's not
to
working
slap
for you.
those sanctions back on worldwide.
Time to log
And
in.
I'll tell you what I'm worried about.
Try harder.
I'm worried about money. You read
keep
about
trying.
all the companies
It gets
out
in and then
there
gets kicked back
doing
out.
business, about to do business in Iran. And if we don't get this settled now with other countries in the world about sanctions, then Iran could violate that agreement, and we're the only ones putting the sanctions on. We need to move aggressively now. But I would say this to you, Brett. Number one, if they violate it, we need to move against them. And number two, if we find out they're developing a nuclear weapon and we know how to get to it, we're going to go take it out. That is what we have to do. We cannot let things get farther down the road like we did with North Korea.
But Governor Kasich, you know that the most powerful sanctions are the multilateral ones.
That's right.
And these European countries are already reestablishing these ties.
I know, Brad.
They don't want.
But Brad, here's the problem. You take a look at Belgium. I talked to a diplomat from Belgium. I said, how's it going? He said, we have the military in the streets right now. We never dreamt we'd ever see it. See, I think there is an opportunity to bring the world together. The Turks are being threatened. We know about the French. We know about the Belgians. We know about the Brits. Everybody is under fire and under attack, and we have to stand together as an alliance. So actually, the opportunity is there, because of the threat to all of these countries, to bring all of us together and say there is something more important than money. It is the future in the world and the future of our children and grandchildren. That's the kind of leadership this country needs, and it has not been in effect during the administration of Barack Obama. And that's only the beginning of the failure that we have committed, not only in the Middle East, but all over the world, including Russia and China.
Governor, thank you. Governor Christie, Libya is the newest base for ISIS. Just today, Defense Secretary Ashton Carter said ISIS is consolidating their footprint there and also setting up training facilities. So if you were president...
How do they know this information? How do they know all of this?
There?
Right,
Who tells them this?
This
They
is
have some
another one of those
insider
places where
information.
Hillary Clinton has so much to answer for and why she is completely unqualified to be commander-in-chief.
Oh, here he goes.
In a previous Democratic debate, Martha Raddatz 3 times asked Hillary Clinton about the failure in Libya, a policy that she took credit for, and said, what is your measure of responsibility, Madam Secretary, for the failure in Libya? 3 times she refused to answer the question because she refuses to be held accountable for anything that goes wrong. If it had gone right, believe me, she would have been running around to be able to take credit for it. Here's what I do. This is about the bigger, broader war against ISIS. We need to bring together our European and our Sunni Arab allies, and we need to develop a strategy together to take on ISIS every place that it is around the world so that together, all of us can take ISIS out, destroy it, and then move on to come back to our country, protect our homeland security, and make sure that the American people are safe. As President of the United States, that is exactly what I will do.
Thank you.
Maybe let's discuss it already.
Okay, that was very long-winded. Jesus Christ. Okay.
But what Jesus, guys? You need to lead the conversation. Lead it.
Yeah. I was going to ask, how do you feel about Christie? I'm sorry, saying that we need to come together? Is this a plan that's going to work?
But what specifically? What does it mean, come together? Come together for a party, to play at these casinos, this Atlantic City, or what come together? What to do? He didn't say any specifically, just demagogical, just...
Let me start you.
He was just saying generic stuff that sounds good. It wasn't anything that you could actually like hold on to with substance, or there's like an actual plan to something, you know?
Right, but he was saying that we should come together, and I'm feeling like he was saying to combat what Hillary Clinton is standing for. And I want to pull up some of the things she stands for, because he really wasn't being specific when he said it.
He wasn't being very specific at all. I think that he was being very surface level, kind of staying safe so he doesn't really get booted.
Cruz plan for president? Why Obama is here? His plan.
I'm sorry?
That was done by accident.
I put it up to clear the media. It was a gray box.
Okay. Okay. Got it.
I'm going to
No. Guys, but we don't have any conversation. We just what we speaking about.
Well, I was going to say that the number one thing that they've been attacking Hillary Clinton for is her gun reform policies. Do you feel like that she is going to jeopardize the Second Amendment right to bear arms?
I think the Second Amendment has been there for countless years. I mean, it's not going to go anywhere. You have the right to bear arms. I think what more Democrats are leaning towards is having more of like mental background checks, more of like, okay, let's see who can have a gun and be responsible with a gun. I absolutely think that's completely how it should be. I don't think anyone should go to, their local gun store and just pick up a gun and they're good to go.
Okay.
Yeah, and it should be regulated too of the type of weapons that people are actually able to get. Like, there's a difference between being able to get a small pistol and then going down to the local Walmart and getting yourself a machine gun with like 30 rounds and then going up to the other aisle and picking up like a cereal box. Like, that's a problem, you know?
And Jeb Bush he actually allowed concealed weapons to be in the state of Florida. He also voted for the stand your ground law here in Florida. So he's one of those that doesn't want any kind of regulations on gun control. But to me, you're allowed to have a gun here in America. That has been established for years now. But let's go ahead and regulate it. Let's not make these kids who kind of go wacky and go a little left and go to school and kill these innocent children. Let's regulate it. Why do they not want to allow that to happen?
Looking through like what these kids are, if you look at the mass shootings that happened this last year, the common denominator with all these kids that were doing the shooting is the medication that they were taking. A lot of them were taking the same medication.
Okay.
So you need to look into these pharmaceutical companies and seeing like what are they putting in these pills? Like, what's causing these kids to lose their minds to a point where they're going into schools and shooting people, and they're all on the same prescribed drugs. Like, there's a common denominator here, and we need to like look into it and see what's really going on.
And then if you go even deeper than that, how are these drugs even being allowed to be sold on the market? And then it's just like whole conspiracy like situation.
The same way somebody can pollute a whole community's water to the point.
Yeah,
you're so right.
It's the same way. These big corporations get away with all this crap because nobody looks into what they're doing. They just take it for surface value. And now America's getting to the point now where we have to do our own research. We can't take what the politicians are saying to us to heart, you know?
And what the Republicans are saying is that gun control won't necessarily end gun violence. It's up to the people to stop gun violence. You put gun control, you have regulations on guns, then we won't even have the right to bear arms eventually. There's like, it's like a fallacy. I can't remember which fallacy it is, but I want to say it's, okay, no, I'm not going to even guess. But it's a fallacy that's basically saying that you do one thing and then it's going to lead to something else, and that's not necessarily true.
Totally agree. Douglas, how do you feel about the Second Amendment? Do you think that we should amend it anyway? Do you think that we should regulate it?
Yes.
Give us your opinion. What do you think exactly?
The way it was written was way too vague.
Yeah, I agree with that also. Especially in this day and age, it's open to interpretation with so many new technologies that we have that can potentially hurt people, like the internet, like the whole Privacy Act now, like freedom of speech now. It's such a huge coverage of the internet. You know, like what is okay to say and what is not okay to say. What's hurting somebody and then what's not hurting somebody.
Also, consider the fact that when the law was made, they had muskets.
Very true.
Inaccurate one-shot guns.
Okay.
Nowadays, we have very accurate
machine guns, yes, and automatic.
If they had shit like that back then, I think they would have written it differently.
Okay.
It's such a patriotic thing for America to have this, right to bear arms. It's a very, very American ideal, red, white, and blue flag type of idea. So it's very Republican of them.
It's very Republican. And now we're going to get back into the debate, you guys. Let's see what's being said.
ISIS in the caliphate. We need a strategy to destroy ISIS there. You can't do that without the cooperation of the Muslim world, because they're as threatened as we are. And so I think it's important for us to be careful about the language we use, which is why I've been critical of Donald Trump, disparaging women, disparaging Hispanics. That's not a sign of strength. Making fun of disabled people, we're never going to win elections if we don't have a more broader, unifying message.
Governor, thank you. Senator Cruz, change of subject. You've called for an end to the renewable fuel standards, which mandate that refineries blend biofuels, including ethanol, into gasoline. As you well know, ethanol is a big industry in this.
Oh my God, Carlos had the most to say about ethanol.
Terry Branstad,
and how it's a derivative from corn. I'm like, okay.
Who is in the hall tonight, said that so that you're bankrolled by
A lot of these corporations don't want to conform to the new technologies because they make so much money with the old ones.
Right.
There's no reason why we should be using coal.
with you
Like, there's no reason.
as the next-term governor of the state, sir.
Well, Chris, I'm glad to discuss my views on ethanol and energy. I think God has blessed this country with enormous natural resources, and we should pursue all of the above. We should be developing oil and gas and coal and nuclear and wind and solar and ethanol and biofuels. But I don't believe that Washington should be picking winners and losers, and I think there should be no mandates and no subsidies whatsoever. And indeed, my tax plan that I've introduced, it's available on our website. It's a simple flat tax for everyone. It'll produce enormous economic growth, and it eliminates every mandate, every subsidy. So there's no subsidies for oil and gas, no subsidies for anyone. Now, it is true that there are a bunch of lobbyists and a bunch of Democrats in this state spending millions of dollars trying to convince the people of Iowa that I somehow oppose ethanol. It's not true. I have introduced legislation that would phase out the ethanol mandate over 5 years, but that is in the context of having no mandates whatsoever for anyone. And I would note there's a much more important government regulation to ethanol, and that's the EPA's blend wall that makes it illegal to sell mid-level blends of ethanol and gasoline. I will tear down the EPA's blend wall, which will enable ethanol to expand its market share by up to 60%, all without mandates, all without any government mandates whatsoever through the marketplace. And I'll note finally, Chris, there is a reason that Iowa's Congressman Steve King, perhaps the fiercest defender of farmers in this state, is chairing my campaign, because he understands that I'm committed to a fair and level playing field for every energy source without lobbyists and without Washington picking winners and losers.
Dr. Carson, I'd like to ask you about exactly that issue. Where are you on the mandatory ethanol standard? And precisely this question: should government be in the business of picking winners and losers, or should it be left to the marketplace?
Well, as anyone knows who's been listening to me, I'm very much against the government being involved in every aspect of our lives. Last year there was an additional 81,000 pages of government regulations. If you stack that up, it would be a 3-story building. This is absolutely absurd. And they've insinuated themselves into everything. Now, as far as the renewable fuel standard is concerned, certain promises were made, certain government contracts were issued, which extend all the way into the year 2022. And I believe that it's probably unfair to withdraw the rug, because people have invested money, people have invested a lot of energy into that. But, we are blessed with tremendous energy in this nation, and we need to be talking about new sources of energy. 70% of our population lives bi-coastally. What about hydroelectric power? We can develop that. We have so much natural gas now, and we can liquefy it. We can transfer it across the seas. We can make Europe dependent on us instead of Putin, put him back in this little box where he belongs. Those are the kinds of things that we ought to be doing, and take advantage of the tremendous opportunities and energy that God has given us. Not get involved in these little petty arguments, and we can get a lot of them out if we get the government out of our lives.
Doctor, thank you.
All right, we're gonna pause it here. I was over here reading about ethanol. I was trying to understand the big deal about it. It was saying that ethanol is added to gasoline because it burns cleaner, and that the only real problem with it is that it will rust your fuel tank after a while.
Yes.
And I'm trying to understand why it's such a big deal. Do you guys can you guys help me to understand that?
I feel like with that particular policy, it's just,
I would drink that gasoline.
It's a way for them. It's a way for them to keep using gas, and then using the ethanol estrogen as an excuse to keep using it because it's cleaner. Even though there are other methods of creating energy that they could invest in that have so much more potential. The thing is that
you're saying it would be safer for the environment to use an alternative. Okay, I got it.
It's terrible for the environment when they use coal. Like
I know that much.
It destroys it. And the thing is because these corporations have so much strings attached to these lobbyists and these politicians. It's hard for them for politicians to change the regulations when it comes to using.
They would lose so much money if they
that. And plus, like, imagine if that information got out, like, about those politicians. That'd be huge.
Exactly.
Too,
Exactly.
so.
It's really hard to change the opinions of people, and it's definitely hard to start a whole new like frontier on this, you know, cleaner energy and more efficient energy. If it's worked in the past, why not keep working? Especially when it's making them so much money.
Exactly.
So that's something that we have to dig deeper with these politicians and find out, you know, are they really in it to win it in the long term and to save us money and to save the world from not being polluted, or are they just really in it to make some money and put it in their pockets? But
okay. But I was saying, if you saw with Ted Cruz, he was like, yeah, we need to do this and this. We need to have wind power. We need to harness this. But he didn't say we need to get rid of the whole process of using ethanol and oil.
He won't.
I'm like, so where are you going with this if you're not going to eliminate what's bad for us and only say that we need to use these resources or this to make yourself look good? Then how can we really trust you?
Exactly. Things need to be set in motion. We need like actual objectives. We need things that they will actually do, certain energy resources that they are trying to implement within the upcoming years, but it can't just be talk of what they want to be changed.
You guys, there's so much suppression when it comes to these technologies. There are people out here that actually work on anti-gravity and have working prototypes. The thing is, the government goes out there and looks for these people and patents these things so that they can't even create them anymore because legally they're owned by the government because they've been patented by them. So a lot of this stuff is just self-sabotage for these companies so that they're able to still own the coal industry and able to use that information. This stuff has been happening forever. Look at Tesla and Edison. Tesla was for free energy. He created a way for us to transfer electricity wirelessly without wires. And with JD Morgan, he had invested in, that's when electricity was coming out, and he had invested in all the poles to go across the United States. So if Tesla had continued testing his stuff and created wireless electricity, then we wouldn't need the poles around the United States, and JD Morgan would lose all his investment that he put in to put in all those poles around the United States. You know how much money that is to provide electricity wiring to the whole United States? That's a lot of money. And to have a guy creating a way for them to wirelessly transfer electricity, then that's killing your money. That's not making your money. So
This reminds me of the conversation we had about why all the wiring isn't underground yet. It would just cost too much money.
Exactly.
And then why knock something that's already been working for so long? Yeah, when the storm comes, we're not going to have power. Yeah, when the storm comes and everybody is going to be out in the streets because it's too hot in the house. But we don't care because it's working for us right now, and you weren't knocking it initially.
Exactly. Kevin, if you could be president for the day and you can implement any rule under, you know, whatever sun you want it to be, what would you do when it comes to new resources?
I wouldn't even touch on that. I would call for full disclosure on everything that America has done, what we have in the papers, everything. I think once America gets to know what the real dilemma that we're in, we can start working on progress. Because I feel like the majority of America wants to change America and wants to make it better. I just think we're stuck with a minority who has a lot of control, which is the 1%. You see, it's that same 1% that has all that control. 99% of us want that change, but that 1% has all that power. So they're able to dictate the structure of how we live. Do you realize there's a small group of people who dictate how we eat, when we eat, where we buy
what
our
we
food,
watch,
what
we see,
everything. So you know, having that much power, they are able to shape how we think about our world. If you're not in tune with yourself and looking into these stuff and researching yourself, you'll never be in the know. You'll just be in that same bubble.
Okay, but what about the people who think that divulging all this information will create public outrage?
Yeah, because those are the people who did something wrong. You did something wrong. You don't want people to
1%. Oh, okay, well, just get me together, honey. Okay, we're going to go back to the debates now.
Conservative leader, and I also had detailed plans to fix the mess in Washington, D.C. As president, I will restore and rebuild our military, restore the alliances, and keep us safe. And as our party's nominee, I will defeat Hillary Clinton in November. I ask for your support on the caucuses come Monday night, and I will make you proud as our party's nominee. Thank you very much.
Dr. Ben Carson.
I want to thank the people of Iowa for being so welcoming to me. Please think of our founding fathers as you listen. We, the people of the United States, in order to form a more perfect union, establish justice, ensure domestic tranquility, provide for the common defense, promote the general welfare, and secure the benefit